Welcome to Goofy Harry, today's adventure. What if Captain America found Harry on the front lines of a magical Cold War and trained him to lead? If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Now let's begin. Chapter 1, the boy the border. The eastern sky over the Polish border held that bruised pewter color that means dawn has not yet decided what to be. Frost ran along the lip of every steel barrier. Diesel smoke from the idling trucks crept low across the field and pooled at the boots of the soldiers, and the soldiers themselves stood without complaint, breath silvering, as though complaint had been issued out of them by some quiet order long before sunrise. Steve Rogers walked the length of the line with his shield slung across his back and a clipboard under his arm. He could have carried only the shield or only the clipboard, but not both, not on the man on duty tonight. He had decided early that the clipboard was the more dangerous of the two. Names on a clipboard were the difference between a family arriving at a railway platform in Krakow and a family being recorded as missing in some closed file in a building no one would ever visit again. He flipped a page, drew a line through a name with a careful, blocky tick, and moved on to the next civilian in the queue. Pani Kowalska, 2 children, husband. The woman in front of him answered in halting English that was, somehow, more military than his own. She had been a nurse in a Soviet hospital before the borders began moving. Her husband was a forester. Her husband had stayed behind to fight a fire that was not a fire. Steve marked her file. We'll get word to him. Bus 3, third door, wait for the green light, then go, don't stop for anything. She did not look at him. People who had been in the war for a long time stopped looking at uniforms. She turned and went, and her 2 children, who had been holding onto each other's coat hoods, went with her. Sam's voice came in through Steve's ear. Cap, bird 2, 2 o'clock, eastern horizon. Birds aren't supposed to fly in that pattern. Steve glanced at the sky without lifting his head. A pair of long shapes moved against the false dawn cloud, too smooth to be aircraft, too fast to be anything that ought to belong in this air. How smooth, he said. Smooth, like they're not bothering to be subtle. Distance, 6 minutes out at their current speed, less if they want to push it. Then I'm working faster. He turned the clipboard so the next name was up. Next. The next was a man in a coat that did not fit in a hat with a feather where no feather should have been. A wizard then. The hat was a habit. The man had probably been chased out of his cottage with no time to be sensible. He had a wand bound to his forearm with cord. He had eyes that did not lift past Steve's chest. Name. Steve said Merk Janksik. Family, wife and son. Wife went last night with the oars. Son, the man's hand passed over his face. I do not know. Then we'll find your son. Bus 4, second door, sit at the front. There's a woman in green going through bus 4. Tell her I sent you for the parents list. The man's eyes lifted to him. He had not expected to be told anything in that tone, and the tone had done what tone is meant to do. He nodded and went, Sam again in his ear. Cap, those birds picked up speed. Copy, hold position, tell ground we're going to hot intake. Quietly. Quietly, Sam echoed. Right, because that's what we are. Steve smiled, just barely, and ticked the next name. He had been on this border for 2 weeks. The Avengers had been on this border, in one form or another, for 9 months. The line on the briefing maps in Director Fury's office had moved 14 kilometers westward in that time, and every kilometer had been someone's grandparents' house. He did not need to know magic to understand the war. He had grown up in another war. He knew what it looked like when borders dropped their politeness. The wizards called it something elaborate. The Avengers analysts called it a magical conflict. The actual translation in Fury's blunt voice had been 3 words: people are dying. Steve agreed with Fury's translation. He was 3 names from the end of his roster when he saw the child. The boy was standing at the edge of the field, near the gap in the fence where a rabbit might cross. He was not in the line. He was barefoot. He wore something that had once been a jumper and had been torn at the shoulder, so the cold had gotten in and stayed. His hair was black and rough as a startled cat's. He had a cut on his forehead that was not new and not yet old, a clean diagonal line above his right eyebrow that looked like a chalk mark on his skin. He was looking at Steve. He was looking at Steve the way the woman with 2 children had looked at him a moment ago, which is to say not at all, except that with the boy it was different. The boy was looking at him the way a person looks at a tree when they are trying to decide whether the tree will hold them. Steve put the clipboard down on the bonnet of the nearest truck. He did not reach for the shield. He went down on one knee in the frost slowly with both hands open and visible. Hey there, he said. Hey son, the boy did not move. You all right, Steve said. Are you hurt? The boy's eyes shifted along Steve's coat down to the patch at his shoulder. Steve did not move. He let the boy look. The boy's mouth moved once, twice, around a word that would not come. Take your time. The boy tried again. The word was English in a small, careful voice, the kind of voice a child uses when they are very tired and very afraid and have practiced something so they will not lose it. Padfoot, Steve waited. Padfoot, the boy said again. I look for Padfoot. Padfoot, Steve said. All right, is Padfoot the name of a person, son, or the name of a place? The boy's face shifted in a way that was, on a child, terrible to look at. He did not cry. The crying had been done weeks ago. Person, he said. He has a black coat. He is big. He is my godfather. Steve breathed in once slowly through his nose. He knew about godfathers. He knew what it meant to ask for one. All right, he said. Then we're going to find him. What's your name? The boy looked at him a long time. He could see the boy weighing the shape of him. Then he said it. Harry. Hello, Harry. Hello, Harry said with the careful gravity of a child who has been raised on please and thank you, and Steve felt the bones of his own chest move in a quiet way he did not have language for. How old are you, Harry? 7. 7. You're going to come with me, all right. I'm going to put my coat on you and I'm going to lift you up and then we're going to find you somewhere warm. That all right? Harry nodded. Steve was already pulling his coat off. He was a big man and the coat was big. It came down on Harry like an architectural decision. Harry sank into it. He smelled very faintly of cold pine and old smoke and something else Steve could not place that he later learned was fear that had been carried for too long. Steve lifted him. The boy weighed almost nothing. Sam, he said into the comm. I have a juvenile evac priority, possible mag affiliate, no documentation, scar over the right eye, looks like a fresh delayed action cut. Patch me to the order liaison. On it. ETA bird 2, 3 minutes. Then patch me to the liaison in 2. Steve walked the boy back toward the trucks. He did not run. Running would have told the people in the line that something was wrong. He walked at the speed of a man who has all the time in the world. He passed the wizard in the hat with the feather. The wizard had gone 2 steps with his orders and stopped and was now standing very still, looking at Harry the way a man looks at the last 20 zlotych in his wallet. You see this child before? Steve asked him. The wizard's mouth opened. He did not speak. Steve nodded once. He kept walking. Then there was a sound he knew, the wet inward sound of a man's lungs choosing finally to fail him, and he turned. It was not the wizard with the hat. It was an Auror who had been standing 20 meters down the line in a long gray coat with the look of a man whose hands knew where his wand was without his eyes having to check. The Auror's coat was now darkening at the lapel. The Auror went down on his knees. He did not put a hand out. He looked at Steve. He said something in Polish that Steve did not need translated. Then he went the rest of the way down. The wizard with the hat made a low sound and ran toward the Auror, and Steve, who had a child in his arms and the shield on his back, said very quietly to no one in particular, Sam, the birds are here. 3 out, Cap, 3 out and burning hot. Then they're not the only thing in the air. They're not, I have you. He turned. He set Harry down at the wheel of the truck, in the small space between the wheel and the chassis where a child could press himself flat and not be seen from the road. Stay here, son, don't move, don't speak. If anyone you don't know comes, you close your eyes and you keep them closed. I'm going to be right here. Harry's small hand came up and gripped Steve's wrist. It was not a brave grip. It was the grip of a person who has decided that a stranger is worth gripping. All right, Harry whispered. Steve put a gloved hand once briefly against the back of the boy's head. Then he stood up and he stopped being a man with a clipboard. There is a quality of stillness people who have been at the front a long time recognize. It is not the stillness of trees. It is the stillness of an animal that has stopped pretending to be anything except an animal. The Aurors in the line felt it. The soldiers felt it. The children in bus 3, who could not have explained why, stopped fussing. Cap unhooked the shield in one motion and brought it around. The first hex came out of the tree line like a thrown stone of green light, and he caught it on the rim and threw it back. The throw did not, in itself, kill anything. The throw was a statement. The hex returned the way it had come, the way a thrown rock returns to the man who threw it, and the man who threw it had not been ready to catch his own work back, and the tree line moved. He saw shapes coming through the brush, dark coats, silver-masked faces. He counted 7 on the ground and the 2 in the air, and then a Patronus the shape of a wolf burst between him and the tree line and bought him 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough. Wilson, he said into the comm, I want the road cleared and the buses out. Then I want strafing on grid Charlie 4. Don't break the line for anything. On it, Cap. The shield came up again. A red curse off the rim. A binding curse he ducked. He moved through the line of refugees toward the source because the source was what mattered, and there are only 2 ways to break an ambush. One is to leave. The other is to walk into it before it finishes setting. He walked into it. A Death Eater came out of the brush at his right, and Cap caught him under the jaw with the rim of the shield, and the man went down. Another rounded behind him. He did not turn. He drove an elbow back and put the man on the ground without looking. He was moving the way he had moved through houses in the Battle of the Bulge, without hurry, without temper, with the kind of attention a man gives a thing he has done long enough that the thing is no longer something he does, but something he is. He heard, somewhere overhead, the kettle shriek of the falcon's wings cutting through the brush. A green light came toward him. He stepped out of it. The tree behind him simply ceased to be a tree. He noted that. He had been told the killing curse could not be blocked. He filed the verb. Block was one verb, avoid was another. He preferred the second. A figure moved out of the smoke ahead of him, taller than the rest, with a wand held differently. Older, a captain in his own way. The man saw Cap and stopped, and the stopping was professional. The man was assessing. Cap let him assess. While he assessed, Cap closed 3 meters of ground he would not have to close later. Murmuring, "Boy," the older Death Eater said in accented English. "We will have him." Cap said, "Try." The man flicked his wand. Cap caught the spell on the shield. He stepped under the recoil of his own block, through the shield, took the man's wand hand at the wrist with a pivot, and dropped him in the leaf rot. He came up with the shield as it returned. He did not, in his head, count this as a kill. He counted it as a man stopped from finishing a thing. The radio crackled. "Cap, I have eyes on a Quinjet. Friendly. ETA 40 seconds. Romanoff, tell her I have civilians in the open. Tell her to find me an angle. Already told her. She's already chosen one." A second wave moved at him out of the trees, and he met it, and the meeting was not heroic, it was bookkeeping. The shield kept its count. A young Death Eater with a face barely older than Harry's gripped his wand wrong, and Cap took the wand and dropped him gently and shouted at him in English the boy did not understand. "Stay down, son, just stay down." The boy did. A blue blur came down the road, and Black Widow stepped out of the Quinjet's hatch before it had fully landed, and 3 Death Eaters along the western flank decided abruptly that they had urgent business in the brush. "Status," Natasha said. "Civilians in motion. 2 hostiles down, friendly, 1 captured. Bird 3 is still mine. Son's under that truck. Son's, his name's Harry." She did not say anything else about that. She lifted her wrist, her bracelets pulsed. The brush on the eastern flank coughed twice and fell quiet. "Sam," she said. "On you," Sam said. "Bring the noise." Sam's wings opened and folded, and the strafing run he had been holding finally came in, low and tight along the tree line, and the part of the engagement that had been an engagement decided to be a retreat. It became a retreat in less than 2 minutes. The line went still. The buses moved. The civilians, who had been on the ground or in the wheel wells, came up cautiously. The wizard with the hat with the feather, who had been holding the dying oarer's head off the gravel, looked up and saw Cap walking back toward the truck with the shield resting once again across his shoulder. Harry came out from under the wheel well slowly. The coat was still on him. He looked at Cap the way a child looks at the answer to a question he has not been able to phrase for years. "It's all right, son, they're gone." Harry walked the last steps to him. He did not hug Cap. He did not cry. He put one hand on the rim of the shield, the way a person puts a hand on a fence to know that the fence is solid, and he stood there. "All right," Cap said. "All right." He picked the boy up again. Sam came down on his wings a few yards off, and the wings folded, and Sam came over to them at an easy walk, with the kind of casual stride he had always had when he wanted to make a child feel safe. "Hey, little man," Sam said. Harry looked at him. "You like soup," Sam said. Harry considered this question with the gravity it deserved. Then he nodded. "Excellent," Sam said. "Romanoff makes soup. Don't ask her what's in it, just eat." Natasha's eyes did not move, her mouth almost did. It was at this exact moment, with the soup mostly negotiated and the trucks moving and the oarer's coat being folded over the oarer's face by a man who could not stop saying his name, that the second visitor of the morning arrived. He did not come out of the trees, and he did not come out of the sky. He walked up the road from the south. He had been somewhere closer than anyone had realized. He had taken his time getting here. His robes were a sober gray-blue, almost the color of the sky. His beard was very long and very white. He wore half-moon spectacles, and behind the spectacles his eyes were the eyes of a man who is not surprised by anything because he has long since taken being surprised out of the working tools available to him. "Captain Rogers," he said, with the gentlest of nods, "I believe you have something that belongs with me." He looked at Harry. Cap looked at him. There's a way of looking at a man that does not need to escalate. Cap deployed it now. He shifted Harry's weight slightly so that the boy was held against his chest, with the back of Harry's head cupped under his palm, and he did not move otherwise. "Sir," he said, "I'm afraid I don't know your name. Albus Dumbledore. We have been in correspondence. We've been in correspondence at the level of liaisons. I've read your letters. I appreciated them. I haven't met you. Then we shall consider ourselves introduced. The boy. The boy is in my care until I'm satisfied he should be in someone else's." Dumbledore's eyebrows did something gentle. "Captain, the boy is one of mine." "He's not anyone's, sir. He's a boy." A long moment passed between them. The wind moved in the trees. The wizard with the feather hat was watching them now, openly. Sam was watching them. Romanoff was watching them, and Romanoff had her hands precisely where they had been a moment ago, which is to say not on her bracelets, but not entirely off them. The Potters were under our protection, Dumbledore said quietly. The Potters are dead, Cap said. I know. The protection extends to their son. Then the protection failed, sir, and I'm here. The boy walked out of that tree line into a refugee line, because nobody from your order was at this border by the time the curses started. I don't say that to wound you. I say it because the next conversation is about what protection means now. Dumbledore did not flinch. There is a particular kind of man who does not flinch when he is told that he was late, and Dumbledore was that kind of man. The flinching in his case had been done elsewhere and earlier and would be done again in private. Here in front of his agents he listened. You have a paper, Cap said. It says you have authority over his guardianship. Do you have a paper saying you have authority over the choice he makes in the next 30 seconds? Captain, he is 7. Yes, sir, he's 7. I picked up a 7-year-old this morning in the cold. He asked me for his godfather by a name I've never heard, and he didn't ask me for you. I imagine that will hurt you for a few weeks. I'm not asking it to hurt you. I'm asking you what you'd like to do about it. Dumbledore looked at him for a long moment. He had been looked at by men in this way before. He had not been looked at in this way by very many of them. The men who had looked at him in this way had usually been Aurors who had reason to think he was about to lose them a battle. The men who had looked at him in this way had never been Muggles. May I speak with him? Dumbledore said. You may. I'll set him down. I'll not leave. I will not ask you to. Cap put Harry down. He kept one hand at the boy's back. Harry's small fingers caught at the hem of the coat. Dumbledore knelt. The motion of his knees in the gravel did not seem to cost him anything, which was a small miracle of will and posture both. He brought himself down to the height of a child of 7. Harry, he said. Harry looked at him. I knew your mother. I knew your father. They loved you very much. Harry's small face did something. It was not yet recognition. It was something earlier than recognition. They were, Dumbledore began. Padfoot, Harry said. Dumbledore stopped. Padfoot, Harry said again. I look for Padfoot. He is my godfather. Dumbledore closed his eyes for a count of 1. Open them. Padfoot is being held. We are working to recover him. Can you find him? We are trying. Harry looked at him for a long time. Are you Padfoot's friend? I am his teacher's friend. I was his teacher. Harry weighed this with a child's 7-year-old gravity, which is a heavier gravity than most adults afford to most things. He turned his head and looked up at Cap. Cap did not say anything. Harry looked back at Dumbledore. The captain said he would find him, Harry said carefully. He said he would find him, and he kept the men with the wands away. I will go with the captain until Padfoot comes. Dumbledore studied the child a long moment. If there is a kind of pain that comes from being a wise man and a kind man and being also the man who has been late, Dumbledore was tasting it now. He did not let it move his face. He nodded slowly. Very well, Harry, very well. He rose. He looked at Captain Rogers. Sir, I should like a proper conversation in a place that is warmer than this about what comes next. I would welcome it. Bring tea. I'll find sugar. You are very gracious for a man holding what is mine. He's nobody's, sir. We agreed on that 10 seconds ago. Dumbledore's mouth did the smallest possible thing that was not exactly a smile. Indeed we did, he said. Indeed we did, Captain. Shall be in correspondence. Do not, I beg you, raise him to dislike us. We will be needed before long. I'll raise him to do right by people, sir, and if he likes you for it, that's between him and you. Dumbledore inclined his head. He turned. He walked the long road back the way he had come, and a single owl, which Cap had not seen before, dropped from a tree branch and went with him. The wizard with the hat with the feather was openly weeping. The Quinjet's ramp was down. Cap picked Harry up again. All right, son, he said. Harry looked at him. Soup, Harry said. Cap's eyes did something that was, on a man his size, a smile and not a smile both. Soup, he said. Then we're going home. They walked up the ramp together. The Quinjet lifted at a careful angle. It did not go straight up. Sam was running circuits below them. Romanoff was at the controls with her bracelets dimmed. The hold smelled like fuel and warm metal and very faintly like the soup that Romanoff had not denied was hers. She had the soup on already. She gave Harry a tin cup with both hands. It's hot, she said. Harry took it with both hands. Thank you, he said. She looked at him a long time. She did not say anything else. She turned and went forward to the pilot's seat, and a moment later the Quinjet's nose tilted gently up and the world below began to move away. Cap sat down on the bench next to Harry. The shield came off his back and went with a soft thump against the bulkhead. You did all right, son, he said. Harry drank the soup with the careful precision of a child who has been hungry for a long time and has been taught not to gulp. He drank half of it. He held the cup in his lap. He looked at the shield. He looked at Cap. Was that real? He said. Was what real? The men with the wands. Yes. And the green light. Yes. And the man at the end with the beard. Yes. He knew my mother. He says he did. I believe him about that part. He was sad. He was. Harry thought about this. He took another drink of soup. "Where is home?" he said. "It's a place in America. It's safe. There are people there who'll like you. There's a man named Bucky who's quiet and a man named Sam who isn't, and there's a woman called Natasha, that's her up there, and there are others. We've got a kitchen. We've got a bed for you. We have a window with a tree outside it, and the tree has a bird in it most mornings. I think you'll like the bird." "Is the bird," Harry said carefully, "magic?" "No, son, the bird is just a bird." Harry nodded. He took another drink of soup. He did not say anything for a while. Cap let him not say anything. Below the Quinjet, somewhere over the Polish lowlands, the morning was finishing the business of becoming morning. A pale line of light ran along the curve of the horizon. The bruised pewter was gone. The clouds had remembered how to be white. Fury's voice came in on the bone conduction line in Cap's ear, dry and brief. "Talk to me, Cap. He's safe. He's on board. Dumbledore, cordial. He'll make trouble in diplomatic channels for a week, then he'll write me a long letter." "You read him correctly." "He's a good man, Director. He's a tired good man. We've all met him." "And the kid," Cap looked sideways. Harry had finished the soup. The cup was held with both hands in his lap, very carefully, the way you hold something that you don't want to drop on the floor of a stranger's house. The boy's eyes were closing. "The kid," Cap said quietly, "is going to need some time." "How much?" "All of it, sir." Fury was silent on the other end of the line a moment. "You sure about this, Rogers?" "Yes, sir. You've never raised a child." "I've raised soldiers, sir. The principle's the same and the principle's different." "I'll get the difference right or I'll ask for help." "You'll have help. Romanoff will be insufferable about it. Wilson will buy him a kite. Wilson will teach him to fly the kite. That's not the same thing." "It's not. All right, Cap. We'll talk on the ground." The line went out. Cap sat for a while with his shield against the bulkhead and a child against his side. He put an arm very gently around the boy's shoulders. The boy did not stir. The boy had fallen asleep. The fall had been the absolute conscious fall of a creature that has decided on no evidence but instinct that it is in a place where falling asleep is permitted. The Quinjet flew west. Steve Rogers, who in another life had once been a small man in a smaller alley behind a brownstone in Brooklyn, who had been told by his mother that you took care of the ones who needed taking care of, who had been a soldier and would be a soldier and was sometimes still a soldier in his sleep. Steve Rogers looked down at the 7-year-old he had picked up at a Polish border that morning and revised in the back of his mind the next 20 years of his life. He did not flinch. It is one of the small, quiet truths about him that when his life revised itself, he tended to find that the revisions were welcome. "All right, son," he said softly to the sleeping boy. The Quinjet held its altitude. Outside, the morning finished becoming morning. Inside, a small hand let go of a tin cup, and Steve, without looking, caught the cup before it touched the deck. The Atlantic was a long sheet of slate under them, then a long sheet of slate with veins of silver, then a coast. Harry did not wake when they crossed the coast. He did not wake when the Quinjet's nose dipped over a forest in the Hudson Valley that had been there long enough to remember being a different country. He did not wake when Romanoff brought them down on a pad that had been laid for them, between two stands of birch that someone had paid to plant in a configuration that men approach from any direction would be funneled. He did not wake when the engines spooled down. He woke when Steve carried him through the open hatch and the cold air of New York in winter touched his cheek. He blinked once, with the puzzled solemnity of children who have woken in a place they have not been before. He looked up at the sky over the compound. He looked at the lights along the long, low buildings. He looked at the trees. "Are we home?" he said. "We're home, son." Harry considered this report. He turned his head and looked at the buildings again and decided, by the inscrutable arithmetic of 7-year-olds, that the report was accurate. There was a small reception inside the hangar that had been organized by Sam in the time it had taken Romanoff to land. It was not formal. It was the opposite of formal. Sam had laid out 3 folded blankets on a steel cart, and a cup of warm milk and a paper plate with 3 squares of cinnamon toast that he had personally cut into the shapes that a generous person might call triangles. Bucky Barnes was standing along the back wall with both hands in his pockets and a small, careful smile he had not yet decided to give a child. Had a stuffed bear on the bench beside him. He had not bought the bear. The bear had been in his locker since 1987 and he had carried it across 2 oceans without ever quite explaining why. He picked up the bear when Steve came through the hangar door. He did not come forward. He let Steve come. "Bucky," Steve said quietly, "this is Harry." Bucky's eyes went to the child in his oldest friend's coat. He took the assessment a soldier takes when he is told a new private has joined the unit. He set it down again gently because the new private was 7. "Hey, kid," Bucky said. Harry looked at him a long moment. He was very tired. His decisions about people were now being made by the part of him that operated on bedrock and not by the part of him that operated on words. "Hello," he said. Bucky held the bear out. He did not say anything about the bear. He did not name it. He did not pretend it had a backstory. He simply held it out the way a man holds out a thing that has been waiting a long time to be given to the right person. Harry looked at the bear. He looked at Steve. Steve nodded. Harry took the bear. He tucked it under the arm of his coat. He looked at Bucky and said, with the small, formal courtesy that he had been holding all morning, the way some children hold a coin from a grandmother, "Thank you." Bucky's smile this time finished itself. Sam came over with the cart. He had not in the end made eye contact with anybody. He had set up the milk and the toast and the blankets, and now he simply rolled them all toward Steve and Harry the way a man delivers a parcel that has been sitting in his hands too long. "Welcome home, little man," Sam said. "Thank you," Harry said. "You like cinnamon?" Harry considered. "I think so." "Excellent answer. Excellent answer for a man in your situation." Sam handed him a triangle of toast. Harry held the triangle with both hands, the way he had held the cup of soup, the way he was going to hold most given things for a long while. Steve set him down on the bench. He took a knee in front of him again with the same patient slowness he had used at the border. "Harry, this is home now. The bed I told you about is up the stairs and to the left. The tree with the bird is outside the window. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to ask for anything. You're allowed to say you don't want anything. The only thing you have to do is stay. Can you do that?" Harry looked at him with the eyes of a boy who has been asked to do many impossible things in one morning and has, against every probability, done them. "Yes," he said. Steve put a hand once gently against the side of the boy's head and then stood up. He turned to Bucky, he turned to Sam, he turned to Romanoff coming down the ramp. "All right," he said quietly. "We have a job." None of them answered. None of them needed to. The job was small and very large at the same time, and they were already inside it. And outside the long windows of the compound, the New York winter went on doing its slow, careful work of being winter. And inside, on a steel cart, a 7-year-old boy ate a triangle of cinnamon toast with both hands, with a wool coat too big for him and a stuffed bear too old for him, and the eyes of a child who has decided, against every reason, that this is a place where he will allow himself to fall asleep again. Chapter 2, Compound Years. In the first month, Harry did not speak unless he was asked, and he was not asked very often, and that was, on the whole, the kindest accommodation the compound had ever made for a new resident. He had a room, it had a window, it had a tree. The tree had a bird most mornings, which proved that on at least one point of his briefing cap was an honest man. There was also a chair beside the bed. The chair was sat in every night for the first 3 weeks by one of 4 people on a rotation that nobody had been issued and that everybody respected. Cap took the longest shifts, Bucky took the quietest. Sam read aloud from a paperback novel about a black bomber pilot in Louisiana that did not seem to suit a 7-year-old's ear, but settled the boy in a way Sam approved of. Natasha did not read. Natasha brought a chess board and she put the pieces out on the small bedside table and she played both sides of a game that the boy could watch through half-closed eyes, and on the 4th night Harry pointed at the white knight without speaking and pushed it 1 square sideways. She moved the knight. She kept playing. When the boy was asleep, she did not leave at once. She took the king and set it on its side very carefully on the edge of the table, the way a soldier folds a flag and does not look at the person watching her do it. By the 2nd month, Harry had begun to wander. The compound was 3 stories of low concrete and glass laid into the slope of a wooded hillside in the Hudson Valley, with 2 helipads in the back, a hangar built into the rock, a training floor on the 2nd level, and a kitchen that was always lit at 3 in the morning because somebody on the team was always either coming or going. The kitchen lights and the food on the counter were the first thing the boy began to use as a map of the world. If a half-eaten sandwich was on the counter, then someone was in the gym. If 2 cups of black coffee were drying in the sink, Sam and Bucky had argued about something pre-dawn and gone outside. If the kettle was warm but no one was in the kitchen, then Steve was in his office writing letters with a pen on actual paper, and Steve, when writing letters with a pen on actual paper, did not like to be disturbed unless he was specifically the person you needed. Harry did not, in the early months, often need Steve. He observed Steve from the doorway. He observed him the way a small, careful animal observes a larger one whose habits it is trying to learn. He observed when Steve laughed and at what. He observed who Steve raised his voice to almost no one and who Steve raised his voice for almost everyone. He observed that when Steve put a hand on someone's shoulder, the someone went still, and the going still was not fear. It was the going still of a horse who has decided that a rider is going to be all right. In the 3rd month, Sam took him outside. It was March. The trees were bare and the air had not warmed enough to lie to anyone, but the sky over the hills was a clear pale blue that looked washed. "All right, little man," Sam said. "First lesson, stand here." Harry stood there. "Don't look at the ground, don't look at me. Look at the line where the sky meets the trees." "It's a horizon." Harry looked. "Now tell me what's moving." Harry looked harder. "Branches," he said after a moment, "and a bird, 2 birds, and something behind the ridge, but I can't see it. It's just changing the light." Sam was quiet a moment. "How old are you again, kid?" 7.5. "All right, most fighter pilots can't do that by the end of basic. Tell me about that thing behind the ridge." "It's a deer," Harry said. "How do you know?" "It moves slow. It stops. It moves slow. It stops. The light only changes when it stops." Sam looked at him a long moment. Then Sam laughed, the soft, surprised laugh of a man who has just been handed a gift he was not expecting. "You and me," he said, "are going to get along just fine." By summer, Harry could read a horizon at a kilometer. By autumn, he could read a hallway. That was Natasha's doing. She had begun in the 3rd month to play a game with him that she called Quiet. The rules of Quiet were that Harry was given a number of seconds, sometimes 10, sometimes 100, and he had to vanish from wherever he was. He was not allowed to leave the building. He could not lock himself in a closet. He had to go to a place where he could see Natasha, but Natasha could not see him. In the 1st week, he failed every round. In the 2nd week, he won 1 by lying down behind a planter in the corridor. In the 3rd week, he won 3. In the 4th week, he won every round, and Natasha did not say anything about it, and the next week the rules changed. She would now be allowed to use the cameras. The week after that, she would be allowed to use the cameras and Friday's sensors. The week after that, she would also be allowed to hunt him with her bare feet on the floor and the lights off. The week after that, Harry was 8 by then. She walked into the kitchen where Steve was making coffee, and she said very quietly, he stopped a stair from creaking under his foot. There's a stair on the 2nd floor landing. 3rd one down, it creaks." "He stepped on it just now and it didn't creak." Steve looked up. He pulled his foot. Natasha said, quickly, before the wood gave, the way you do when you know something is going to happen before it happens. Steve set the coffee down. "How long has he been able to do that? He couldn't do it last month. You think it's the other thing? I think we're going to need to call Dumbledore eventually." Steve nodded. He picked the coffee up again, but he did not drink it. "How are his nightmares?" he said. "Down to 2 a week, down from 5. Steve looked at her. She let him look. She did not say anything else because anything else would have been pity, and Natasha did not deal in pity, and Steve preferred it that way. Bucky came back in the fall. The boy heard him before anybody saw him. He was in his room reading a book Sam had bought him about a boy who learned to fly on a giant pelican. Harry was not sure if the pelican was metaphorical, and he stopped reading and looked up at the ceiling and said to nobody, "Mr. Barnes is back." The book was still in his hands when 20 minutes later, the front gate of the compound logged a black SUV through, and Bucky stepped out of the SUV with a duffel bag and a long case and a face that had been 3 weeks in a place that was not warm. Bucky did not announce himself. He did not announce himself ever. He put the case in the armory, the duffel in the laundry, and himself in the kitchen. Steve handed him a coffee without looking up. "How was Sevastopol?" Steve said. "Cold and unhappy. They've moved the corridor. Where? Further south, Trabzon maybe. Bucharest line is no longer the worst of it. You write it up, on the plane. Good, eat." Bucky ate. He had been at the table 14 minutes when he felt on the edge of his right field of vision, the small and entirely silent arrival of a child. He did not turn his head. He waited until Steve gave the smallest of nods, and then he turned slowly with the kind of slowness a man uses when there is a deer at the end of his porch. "Hey, kid." Harry looked at him a long moment. "Hello, Mr. Barnes. Bucky's fine." "Hello, Bucky." Bucky considered him. He had grown half an inch since Bucky had last seen him. He had a band-aid on his elbow and a sticker of a planet, Saturn, by the look of the rings on his thumb. His hair, which had been a startled cat's at 7, was now still a startled cat's, but somebody had been feeding the cat. "You eat," Bucky said. "I had eggs. Want toast?" "Yes, please." Bucky pushed his toast across the table. Harry took it with both hands. He ate it methodically, with the precision of a small, careful animal, not entirely sure that the bigger animal across the table will not change his mind about the toast halfway through. Bucky pretended to eat his own breakfast and watched, in his peripheral, the boy work through the toast. He felt somewhere in his chest, a thing he had not felt in a long time. He did not name it. He did not need to. The toast was gone. Bucky reached into the duffel he had still not put down, and he came out with a small carved wooden figure. A soldier no taller than a man's thumb, painted in 3 colors with a rifle painted along the front. He set it on the table next to the boy's empty plate. "There were 6 of these in a shop in Romania," he said. "I bought all 6. They're for you. Don't ask where they are now. They're in places where you'll find them." Harry looked at the soldier. He looked at Bucky. "Are they magic?" He said, "No, kid, they're just soldiers." Harry nodded gravely. He picked up the wooden soldier with both hands and set it next to his plate. He looked at it a long moment. "Thank you, Bucky," he said. "You're welcome, kid." Steve, at the counter, did not turn around. His coffee was getting cold. He did not drink it. He stood there holding it. Harry found the second soldier 2 days later in the windowsill of his own room. He found the third under the lid of the cookie jar. He found the fourth wedged behind a brick in the wall of the courtyard where he had taken to reading in good weather. He never did find out where Bucky had put the fifth, because the fifth was on a shelf high enough that Bucky had wanted him to grow into it, and by the time Harry was tall enough, he had stopped looking for it. But the sixth, the last one, was on Cap's desk, set up just inside the wood of the doorframe, in the precise spot a guardian would put a thing he wanted a child to find on the day the child first walked unbidden into his office. That happened in the spring of his 9th year. He had pushed the door open with one hand. Cap, at the desk, looked up without surprise. "Hey, son." Harry stood in the doorway. He had grown again. He had a pencil behind his ear in imitation of Sam, who put a pencil behind his ear when he was doing maintenance on the jets. He had a book under his arm. "I have a question," he said. "Sit down, ask it." Harry sat down. He looked at the wooden soldier on the doorframe and decided not to ask about it. He could ask about it later. He had already counted that one. "The book Sam gave me," he said. "It's about the Civil War. I'm at the part with the road where the company has to walk down it knowing the road has cannons at the end. I remember it. They walk down the road anyway. They do." "Why?" Steve put his pen down. "Because they were told to," he said. "Some of them. Because the man next to them was walking. Some of them because they thought they would die anyway if they ran. Some of them because they didn't want to die alone. Some of them. And a few of them, son, because somebody had said to them before they ever picked up a rifle that there was a thing worth dying about that the cannons couldn't beat. Those are the ones that won the war. What had been said to them? It depends on the soldier. For a lot of them it was that the man on the other end of the road has hold of a country that says some people aren't people, and that needs to end today. Some of them needed a sermon. Some of them needed a song. Some of them needed a letter from home. Most of them needed a sentence so short they could carry it down the road without their hands shaking. "What's your sentence?" Steve looked at him a long moment. "You don't leave anyone behind, son. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. The cannons get less interesting when you've decided that." Harry thought about it. He looked at the book in his lap. "That's a good sentence," he said. "It is. Can I borrow it? It's not mine to lend, son. It's yours when you've decided you want it." Harry sat with that. After a while he nodded, the careful, formal nod he had been giving since the morning at the border, and he rose and went out of the office. And Steve, when the door was closed, did not move from the desk for a long time. That evening at supper, Harry asked, in the casual tone of a child trying out a phrase to see how it fits, "Are we going to have to walk down a road like that?" Sam, halfway through his rice, set his fork down. Bucky said very calmly, eventually, "Yeah." Steve looked across the table. He did not contradict Bucky. He looked at Harry instead. "When the time comes," he said, "you'll be the one deciding which road. You'll have people walking with you. You'll have me. You'll have all of us, and by then you'll have your own sentence, and it'll be one nobody else can give you." Harry chewed. "All right," he said. Natasha, across the table, refilled his water glass. The Grangers came to the compound that autumn. Cap had told Harry about them the morning of, in the way he announced everything Harry needed to brace for, simply, accurately, and without taking the bracing away from him. "There's a couple in Hampshire whose street had what your kind would call an obscurus event last week. The Order calls it a statute violation. Shield calls it a containment problem. They're being debriefed in our Surrey safe house this week, and the daughter is coming through here with them because they don't want her in Surrey when the wizards keep dropping in. She's 9, her name is Hermione." Harry, who had been counting marbles on the kitchen floor, looked up. "Is she like me? Same kind of magic?" "Yes." "Is she scared?" "She's brilliant, son, and brilliant kids are not scared the way you think. They're scared of being wrong, so you don't try to be cleverer than her. You let her be cleverer than you. You ask her about books. All right." She arrived in a brown coat too large for her, and shoes that her parents had clearly insisted she wear, and that she had been planning to take off the moment she could. Her hair was a great deal of brown curl held with a clip that was working hard. She had a paperback in her hand. The paperback was a Roman history. Harry, who had been waiting in the kitchen with a glass of orange juice, stood up and held out his hand. "I'm Harry," he said. "I know," said Hermione, with the firmness of a person who had read his file. She shook his hand. "Mother said you would be polite. I see you are. May I ask you something?" "Yes." "Is that man over there really Captain Rogers, the one from the film?" Harry looked over his shoulder. Cap, at the kitchen counter, was scrambling eggs. "He says he's the one from the films, but the films got most of it wrong." "How wrong?" "He says the singing was real and the bear suit was not. Mother told me there was a bear suit. He says it was a chicken suit. He laughs when he tells the story. I don't think it was funny when it happened." Hermione considered him a long moment. Then she said in the precise tone of an analyst making a decision, "I have decided I like you. Sit down, I want to ask you about your magic." They sat down at the kitchen table. That afternoon Hermione made a list of every magical incident Harry could remember experiencing: the cake at the orphanage, the headmaster's wig, the stair that did not creak, the cup he had caught from a meter away without looking, and put them in two columns, WNDED and WNDLSS. She also drew a third column which she labeled control, and to which she gave the values known, GUESSED, and blind. Most of his were blind. "You're an undisciplined sample size," Hermione said, with an aggrieved expression a child should not have been able to construct. "I should not have to write a paper on this when you go to school. I will, but I shouldn't have to. We're going to start a notebook." "All right, it's going to have dates and conditions, and if you can manage it, replicate." "All right, and I'm going to be your correspondent. We'll write letters." "All right." Cap at the counter did not turn around and did not let the small, quiet thing in his face show. When the Grangers left 2 days later, Hermione had her notebook under her arm and Harry had a copy of the first list in his pocket, folded into a small, careful square. Cap had given each parent a card with his number on it and a sentence he had said 3 times in 2 days, which was, "If anything happens again, you call. We are happy to come. We are very happy to come." The Grangers, who were dentists and not, on the whole, people who had been told that a man in a star-spangled costume would come to their living room on demand, took the cards with the careful gravity of people who do not yet know that they will, in fact, end up making the call, but who suspect. The first attempt on Harry's life at the compound came in his 9th winter. He did not know it was an attempt. Nobody told him in detail until much later, and even then the telling was careful. What he knew was that there was a new face on the cleaning staff for 3 days, a quiet older man who pushed a cart and did not look at children. What he knew was that on the 4th morning the cart was found abandoned in the 2nd-floor hallway, and the man was not in the building, and Natasha was not at breakfast, and Cap had a small, careful crease at the corner of his mouth that Harry had never seen before. What he did not know was that the man had been a low-rank operative of a Polish-aligned Death Eater cell, that he had been carrying a cursed object in a coat pocket, that the object had been designed to be left near Harry's room for an hour, after which it would have caused a fire from the inside, that Natasha had clocked him on his 2nd shift and watched him on his 3rd, and intercepted him at 5 o'clock in the morning on his 4th. And that the object was now in a shield vault, and the man was now somewhere where Natasha occasionally went to ask polite questions. What he knew was that Cap that night sat in the chair by his bed. "You all right, son?" "Yes." Steve put his hand once gently against the side of the boy's head. He did not say anything else for a while. "Cap, yes son." The man with the cart, yes, he wasn't real cleaning staff. He wasn't number, he wanted to do something. He did, you stopped him. Natasha did, we all did. Was he sent by Mr. Voldemort? Steve's eyes, which had been at half-mast, came open. He looked at Harry a long moment. "Where did you hear that name?" "In one of Hermione's letters." "She said it, she says we should say it. She says the not saying it gives him too much. Hermione is a brilliant kid. She is." "Yes, son, he was sent by people who work for that man." Harry thought about this. "Will more come?" "Yes." "Will you stop them?" "Yes, all of them." Steve was quiet a long moment. "I'm going to do my best, son," he said slowly. "And I'm going to teach you to stop them too, because the day comes when the right answer isn't somebody stopping things for you. The day comes when you stop things for somebody else. We're going to get you ready for that day, not today, but we'll start." "All right," Harry looked at him. "All right, and the way we start, son, is we don't lie to you about anything, ever, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I want you to know that. Will you remember?" "I'll remember." Steve's hand stayed against the boy's head a moment longer. "You're a good kid, son." It was the 2nd time in 2 years that he had called the boy son. The first had been at the border. He had said it as a habit then, the way men of his generation called every small boy son. He had not said it again all winter and most of a year, because he had not, until this evening, decided he had any claim on it. He had decided. He took his hand back. He went to the door. He turned with his hand on the lamp. "Sleep well, Harry. Good night, Cap." He turned the lamp out. In the hall outside, with the door pulled to and the corridor empty, Steve Rogers stood with one hand against the wall for a long count of 10 before he moved again. There is a particular weight that a man feels when he understands that a thing he has half meant to do for a year and a half has now been done, and there is no taking it back, and there is no reason to want to. He felt that weight. He did not flinch from it. He went down the hall to the kitchen, where Bucky was reading a paper and pretending not to have been waiting up. Bucky looked up. "Well," Bucky said, "he's fine. And you?" Steve sat down. He looked at his oldest friend. "I told him I'd teach him," he said. "You'd already been teaching him. I told him I'd teach him to stop them, not just to be safe from them, to stop them, from other people, from the country, from the road when the road comes. Bucky set his paper down. He picked his coffee up. He looked at Steve for a long, long moment. He's 9, Steve, I know. You sure? He asked me, Buck. He asked me, will you stop all of them? I'm not going to lie to him. Not about that. Not about any of it. I'd rather raise a kid who knows the size of the war than a kid who finds it out the wrong way. Bucky put the coffee down. He sighed, a long, slow sigh of a man who has known another man too long to argue with him about the things they have always agreed on. All right, he said. Then we're both teaching him. Don't think I'm letting you do that on your own. I wasn't going to. Sam's already taught him eyes. Tasha taught him feet. What are you teaching him, Buck? Bucky considered. Hands, he said, and patience, the kind a sniper needs, and how to lose. Steve nodded. All right, he said. All right, Buck. They sat there a long while. Outside, the snow had started, thin and slow, and the compound's lights threw soft yellow squares onto the white. In the spring of his 11th year, the letter arrived. Sam saw it first. He was on the helipad doing a pre-flight check on the new Falcon harness, and he saw an owl, a great big tawny one, coming in low over the trees with the deliberation of a courier who has been told that this is the address and not to mistake the address. He watched the owl with mild interest settle itself on the railing of the helipad. He watched it offer him a thick envelope held in its beak. He took the envelope. The owl looked at him, evaluated him, decided he was acceptable, and flew off. Sam carried the envelope to the kitchen. Cap was making toast. Steve, got a bird. What kind? The talking kind. Steve turned. The envelope was thick parchment, sealed with red wax stamped with a 4-quartered crest. It was addressed in green ink, Mr. H. Potter, C.O. Captain S.G. Rogers, Avengers, Compound, Hudson Valley, NYUSA. Steve read the address twice. He read the seal. He set the toast down. He picked the envelope up. Harry. Harry, who had been at the breakfast nook reading the morning paper with the gravity of an 11-year-old who had been reading the morning paper for the last year as a matter of personal discipline, looked up. Sir, mail call, son. He handed the envelope across the counter. Harry looked at it. He looked at Cap. He looked at Sam. He looked back at the envelope. He opened it the way he opened everything, slowly with both hands and without breaking the seal more than necessary, because his mother had been a careful person and he was, by every echo a child carries forward, a careful person too. He read it twice. He set the letter down on the counter. Sam had picked up the parchment of the second sheet, the supplies list, and was reading it with the visible interest of a man who had been waiting 11 years for this exact piece of paper. Cauldron, Sam said. Pewter, standard size too. We can do that. Wand, Bucky said from the doorway where he had been 3 steps into the room for the last 60 seconds without anyone hearing him arrive. We can also do that. Robes, Steve said. I've got a tailor. Robes, said Sam. Steve, you've got a tailor for robes. He used to do my dress blues. He'll branch out. Harry, between them, looked at the letter. He looked up at Cap. Sir. Son, this is real. Yes, son. I'm going to school. Yes, son. With magic. Yes. And you're going to come with me to get the things. Yes, son. The whole way. We'll go to London. We'll buy you what's on this list. You'll come back here for the summer, and in September you'll get on that train and you'll start school. We'll write letters. You'll come home for Christmas. We'll keep teaching you the things we've been teaching you, and when you're at the school you'll learn what the school teaches, and the things won't fight each other. They'll fit together. Do you understand me? Yes. You're not leaving us, son. I'm not leaving you, sir. Good. Steve picked up the letter. He read it himself slowly with the careful attention he gave to operations orders. Then he handed it back to Harry gently with both hands. Read it whenever you want. Sleep with it if you have to. It's yours, son. We'll prep tonight. We'll fly Saturday. Where are we going? London. Sam behind the counter was grinning openly now, with the wide, stupid grin of a man who has spent 4 years teaching a child to read a horizon and is suddenly today going to get to watch the same child learn how to make a feather float in the air. Bucky's arms were crossed. His mouth was not smiling, but the rest of him was, in the small, careful way a sniper smiles in the corners. Natasha in the doorway had a steaming cup of tea in her hand. Pack light, she said, and take the Cap's good coat. Wizard's judge. They do, said Cap, and will dress accordingly. Harry looked at the 4 of them. He did not cry. He had not cried in years, and he was not going to start now, because pride was a thing he had taken on by osmosis from a man in a star-spangled coat who did not believe in self-pity even slightly. But he sat very still for a long moment, with the letter held in both hands the way he had once held a tin cup of soup, and he felt the small, clean, specific weight of being completely and utterly held in place. All right, he said. All right, son, said Cap. Outside the kitchen window, the bird was on the tree, and the tree was on the hillside, and the hillside was on a continent that, if you watched it from high enough up, looked like a thing under one careful arm. There were, between the morning at the border and the morning of the owl, an enormous number of small things that nobody outside the 4 people on the rotation ever saw. There was the morning Harry at 8 slid down the banister of the second-floor staircase and stopped 6 inches above the floor for a full 3 seconds before continuing. Sam saw it. Sam did not react. Sam walked into the kitchen with a flat expression and said to Steve, "I'm going to need a new pre-flight checklist for the kid." Steve looked at him. "He hovers," Sam said. Steve looked at his coffee. "Of course he does," he said. There was the morning at 9 when Bucky, drilling Harry on simple boxing footwork on the training mat, missed a stop call by a fraction of a second and clipped the boy's shoulder a touch too hard, and the entire row of dumbbells on the rack 4 meters away rattled in their cradles. Bucky stopped at once. He went down on one knee. He took Harry's chin between thumb and finger. "You all right, kid?" "Yes. You let me know when I hurt you. I don't read your face well enough yet." "I will." "And the dumbbells?" "Yes. Can you put them back?" Harry looked at the dumbbells. The dumbbells rolled by themselves back into their slots. Harry looked back at Bucky. "Good kid," Bucky said. "All right from the top." They went back to footwork. He did not bring it up at dinner. He brought it up to Steve in private that night. "It's not magic the way Hermione says her parents told her about magic, Stevie. He's not waving a stick. He's not learning a phrase. He's deciding things and the room is doing what he decides. There are some kids, the wizards say, who can do that, but in books I've read it's not what they describe. It's not a child. It's an old wizard, somebody who's lived past the trick stages." "What are you saying, Buck?" "I'm saying we should write to Dumbledore, not for permission, for information, so we know what we're carrying." Steve wrote the letter that night. Dumbledore wrote back within the week. The letter was long. It said that what they had described was called intent magic, that it was rare, that some part of it was usually evidence of an enormous reservoir of will and a clean alignment between the will and the body, and that under any other circumstance Dumbledore would have insisted on a tutor by now, and that under these circumstances, given the boy's evident equilibrium, he was prepared to wait. He concluded with a sentence Steve circled in pencil and reread. "Continue what you are doing, Captain. You are doing a thing I could not." Steve folded the letter and put it in his desk drawer. Hermione, of course, was even more direct. By the end of the boy's 10th year, she was writing him 3 letters a month, each running to 8 or 9 pages of close, careful script. She had organized his blind control incidents into categories. She had cross-referenced his self-reported emotional state against the magnitude of the effect, and observed, with the polite but uncompromising tone of a child who had read more papers than the people who taught her at school, that his effects were not, in her view, correlated with strong emotion in the way every wizarding text claimed they should be. They were correlated, she wrote, with the inverse, with calmness, with the precise calm of a person who had decided something. She underlined "decided" twice. She enclosed a small, hand-drawn diagram of the difference between the textbook curve and what she believed Harry's actual curve looked like. She apologized in a postscript for the rudeness of saying so before they had met more than once. She added in a postscript that she had nevertheless said so. Steve read all of her letters. He filed them in a small green folder marked GRANGER 8. And at night sometimes he took the folder out and read the diagrams again, and considered, in a way he did not put into words, the possibility that of all the small, careful gifts his life had taken to handing him in the last decade, the 9-year-old in Hampshire was, after the boy himself, the one that was going to matter most. By the morning of the owl, Harry could put a hand on a door frame and tell what room it had come from, stand in a hallway and tell which person was at the other end of it before they spoke, read a man's eyes across a 15-yard parade ground, and know which of 2 orders he was about to give, lift a wooden soldier from a tabletop without touching it, put it back without breaking the paint, stop a stair from creaking, hold his breath underwater for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Sam timed him. Sam was proud. Write his own name in Polish and Russian and Czech, and after Hermione's 3rd letter, a serviceable Latin-filled strip a shield issue sidearm in the dark in under 40 seconds. Bucky, who taught him, did not let him fire it, not yet. Cry when he wanted to, which was rarely, and laugh, which was not as rare as it had been. It is a strange thing to say of a child of 11, but Steve had said it to Sam more than once in private, and Sam had not disagreed. The boy was already in the way that mattered, the man he was going to become. The shape was set. What remained between the morning of the owl and the rest of his life was to put the right tools into the shape. That morning, with the letter in his pocket and the 4 of them in the kitchen, the shape walked over to Steve and stopped at his elbow and looked up. "Sir." "Yes, son, I'm going to be all right." Steve, who had been the man who said all right to other people his entire life, looked down at the boy who had just said it to him, and he took a slow, careful breath. "Yes, son," he said, "I know you are." Chapter 3, The Captain's Protege Goes to School. Diagon Alley in late August had the air of a market town that had pretended it was not a market town for 600 years and had not gotten any better at the pretending. coaches in the side streets, all cages stacked along sun-bleached walls, the smell of fresh ink and old broom straw and frying onions, in that order, depending on which side of which alley you turned into. Cap walked the length of it with the boy on his right and Sam on his left and Bucky 3 paces behind, and he did not, on the surface, look like a man on a tactical movement. He was on a tactical movement. He had been on one since he had set foot off the Quinjet at the Shield station outside London. He had on a dark coat that did not, to a wizard, look like anything other than a muggle's coat. He had on a soft cap pulled down to the eyebrows. He had a list folded into his inside pocket, and a Shield-printed map of the alley with each shop marked by hand, and a small leather notebook the size of his palm in which he was writing in careful blocky pencil. Every wizard who looked at the boy long enough to be looking. There were already 11. He was not concerned with most of them. He was concerned with 3. Sam was on his left and was, by every appearance, a man window shopping a place he had never seen. He was clocking exit. Bucky was 3 paces back and had hold of an umbrella that, to a wizard, looked like an umbrella, and that to anyone who had ever served with him looked like a thing that was an umbrella, the way a rifle is a length of metal. Harry walked between them. He had grown 3 inches in the last 6 months. He was thin and quick and entirely calm, in the way certain children grow calm when they have been raised by 4 people who are themselves calm in entirely different ways. He had on a coat Steve had bought him at a Maine outfitter's that fit him correctly, a sweater Bucky had knitted in Bucharest, a pair of boots Sam had broken in for him, and a small leather notebook in his pocket twinned to Cap's, which he had been given that morning over breakfast with no ceremony at all. "Field journal," Cap had said. "Yours, mine looks like that. Carry it everywhere. Things go in it that go in nowhere else." "What things, sir? What you saw, what you decided. What you got wrong, what you got right, what you do differently, people you trust, people you don't lie to it. You can lie to anybody else if you have to, not the journal." Harry had nodded. The journal had been in his pocket since. It had nothing in it yet. He had written 1 word on the first line in pencil in his careful, precise handwriting. Diagon, he was waiting to see what would come next. The first wizard who looked at him too long was a man at the rim of the fountain outside Gringotts in a faded plum coat, with a face that had been kind 10 years ago and had since gone elsewhere. The man clocked Harry's scar, and his eyes did the thing all of them did, the small flicker up to the hairline and back. Then he clocked Steve, and his eyes did a different thing. He looked at Steve's shield arm without knowing that he was looking at a shield arm, and he looked at Steve's stance without knowing he was reading a stance, and he turned and he went elsewhere. Cap wrote in the journal, "Plumcoat, Gringotts Plaza, 11:14, read stance, trained." He shut the journal. "Bank first," he said. Gringotts was a great deal of marble and a great deal of small fierce creatures behind a great deal of countertop, and the goblin at the counter, when he saw Steve, looked at him a long quiet moment. "Captain Rogers," he said, "we have been expecting you." "Goblin Bardock," Steve said. He had read the briefing, he had memorized the name. "Good morning," said Bardock. "The Potter Trust is in Vault 687. Your client's key is here. We have prepared a statement of holdings. You may review it now or have it sent. Do you have time?" "I have time." Bardock placed a thick ledger on the counter. What was in the ledger was, in the strictest sense, none of Steve Rogers' business. He turned the ledger toward Harry. Harry read it slowly with the careful, methodical attention that he brought to everything, and at the end he looked up at Cap. "Sir, son, it is a lot of money. Yes, son, more than we need today, more than we need this year. What do I do with it? You leave it where it is. You take out what we need this morning. We'll come back. When you're 17, the rest of it's yours to decide. Until then, you take what you need to be a student in good standing and not a thing more." Harry nodded. "All right." He counted out a careful amount on the marble. He did not look pleased about the counting, and he did not look displeased. He counted it the way a person counts out money that has come into his hands not by his earning, and that he has decided to be a steward of. Cap watched him count. Cap put a hand once briefly on the back of Harry's neck. The vault visit was brief. The walk out of the bank was uneventful. Ollivanders was an entirely different building. It was narrow and low and dim, and it smelled of dust and wax and lacquer and the particular thin metallic smell that Cap had associated in his life with very old places where very old men did very precise work. The bell on the door rang. An old man stepped through a back curtain. He was thin and white-haired and had eyes the color of certain skies. "Mr. Potter," he said softly, "I have been waiting." Harry did not flinch at the use of his name. He had been told that this would happen. He had been told by Hermione, in 3 separate letters, that this would happen at this specific shop with this specific man. He stepped forward and held out his hand. Mr. Ollivander, good morning. Ollivander did not take the hand, he went still instead. His eyes moved past Harry to Cap, and they stayed there a long moment with the careful attention of a man making a measurement. And you, sir, Steve Rogers, good morning, Mr. Ollivander. You are the one in the briefings, you are larger than I expected. I'm sorry to have grown. No, number not at all. Ollivander turned. Sit, please. The boy and I have work. The work took an hour. Cap, in the chair by the wall, did not speak. He watched. He watched 23 wands come out of their boxes. He watched 23 wands fail to please an old man's instinct in 23 different small ways. He watched the way the boy held each of them, square shoulders, level wrist, the small, careful awareness of a child who had been taught, very early, that an object in your hand was a responsibility, not a toy. At the 24th wand, the air in the shop changed. It was a slim, pale wand of light wood. Ollivander held it out with both hands, and Harry took it, and Ollivander stepped back, and Harry, without intending to, lifted the wand a fraction of an inch. The dust in the shop went up. It did not blow. It rose. It rose like a soft, careful curtain of light particles and stayed up. Ollivander's white head tilted. Holly, he murmured. 11 inches, phoenix feather. Yes, yes. He looked at Harry. He looked at Steve. Captain Rogers, sir. Curious, Steve waited. The brother of this wand, Ollivander said with the careful precision of a man laying a thing down very gently on a table, is in the possession of the man whose followers killed this boy's parents. It is the wand that gave Mr. Potter the mark on his forehead. The wand that has chosen him today is its twin. The dust slowly came back down. Cap took a single slow breath. And what does that mean? He said. It means he was chosen by a wand that has known him already. It means a great deal of things, Captain. Mostly today it means he has a wand. Ollivander wrapped the wand in brown paper and tied it with twine. He handed it to Harry with both hands. Use it well, Mr. Potter. I will, sir. They walked out of the shop into the afternoon light. Cap stopped on the cobblestones 20 paces down. He did not turn his head. He spoke very quietly. Sam, Cap, did you get that? I got that. Bucky. I'm thinking, Stevie. Think a moment. Then we keep moving. They thought a moment. They kept moving. The remainder of the alley went, on the surface, smoothly. The robes were fitted at Madame Malkin's. The cauldron was bought. The books were bought. The trunk was bought. The trunk was charmed by request to weigh no more than 2.5 kilos no matter what was put inside it, and to lock to Harry's fingerprint. Bucky bought as a gift a small folding knife in a tooled leather sheath, which he handed over wordlessly in the bookshop, and which Harry pocketed wordlessly, and which Cap nodded at without comment. Sam bought as a gift a brass-edged compass set into a leather wrist strap, which Cap nodded at also. Cap, on his own, in a shop on a side alley, bought a small folding penknife with a silver-rimmed handle. He gave it to Harry on the way back to the car. Yours, he said, open with both hands, close with both hands, don't lose it, you won't. No, sir. That night in the Shield safe house in Highgate, the four of them sat in the kitchen and put the wand on the table between them, and they did not talk about it for a long time. It was Bucky who spoke first. Steve. Yeah, Buck, this isn't a school trip we sent him on. I know, Buck. He's going into a school where the Dark Lord and our kid have wands that come from the same bird. I know, and we're sending him. We're sending him because not sending him is worse, Buck. He has to be among his own people. He has to learn what they teach. Hermione said it best in her last letter. The magic he hasn't been taught yet is bigger than the soldier we're shaping. He has to be both. We don't get to skip the half we don't run. Bucky stared at the wand. Then I'm moving to Hogsmeade, he said. You are, said Steve. I just said that out loud, Stevie. You did. We were going to put it on the table tonight. You saved me the time. Bucky almost smiled. All right, I'll set up. I'll have eyes on the village. We can coordinate with the headmaster if you've made the call, but I'm telling you now, Steve, the headmaster doesn't get full visibility. He gets enough. Agreed. Sam laid both his hands flat on the table. And me, flight instructor, Cap said. Officially, we've got the letter from Dumbledore allowing one Avengers-affiliated specialist to consult on the school broom program. They're calling it a cultural exchange. The headmaster wrote me a charming paragraph about goodwill. The actual job is you watch the boy fly. You teach him to fly faster than they teach the rest. You give him a way out of the castle from above. I want him in the air whenever it counts. Yes, sir. Natasha came up the steps of the safe house at that moment with a folder in her hand. She did not sit down. She passed the folder to Steve. He opened it. 3 names, she said. 2 are students, 1 is staff. Which staff? Potions. Steve looked at her. He read the name. He closed the folder. All right, he said, we'll watch him. He looked at the wand on the table. All right, he said, bedtime, Buck, we have a train Tuesday. King's Cross on the 1st of September was a great deal of brass and a great deal of confusion and a great deal of small wizarding children with trunks not as small as Harry's trying to get to a place that was, by the architectural conventions of stations, not a place at all. Cap walked Harry to the wall. He did not, on the walk, do anything different than he always did. He walked at the boy's left shoulder. He had Harry's trunk in his right hand and the boy's lunch in a small canvas bag over his left shoulder. He had on the same dark coat from Diagon. The shield was not visible. The shield was, in fact, in a long leather case behind the seat of the shield car parked outside in case it was needed. He had hoped it would not be. He stopped 2 paces shy of the wall between platforms 9 and 10. He took a knee. He set the trunk down. He looked at the boy. Harry, sir, you ready? Yes. Your sentence, have you got one? Yes. I'm not going to ask what it is, son. It's yours. I'd tell you it's not a secret. Then tell me when you come home for Christmas. That'll be a better night for it. All right. You're going to learn things over there that you can't learn here. You're going to meet people. Some of them will love you on sight. Some of them won't. Be polite to the ones who don't. Be honest with the ones who do. Walk into the rooms slowly. Don't apologize for what you know. Don't pretend to know what you don't. If somebody needs help, help them. If somebody needs space, give it. If somebody needs leading lead, you'll know which. You always do. Yes, sir. And if you ever, for any reason, need me, you write. You don't wait. You don't be brave about it. You write. We have an arrangement with the school for owls, and we have an arrangement with the school for shield couriers, and we have an arrangement with the school for if it comes to it me. You'd come, son, we'd both come, the whole house. Harry stood very still a moment. Sir, yes, I love you. It was a small, careful sentence said in a small, careful voice on a station floor where 1,000 strangers were moving, and it landed on Steve Rogers the way certain very precise rounds had landed on him over the course of his life. Not at the front, but somewhere deeper, where the chest fits itself around things. He took a slow breath. I love you too, son. He stood. He put a hand once against the back of the boy's head. He let it stay a moment. Go on, we'll see you at Christmas. Harry took the trunk by the handle. He turned, with that careful, concentrated walk of a child who has been told once to do a thing and intends not to need to be told twice, and he walked at the wall, and the wall took him. The Hogwarts Express was a great deal of red paint and a great deal of corridor and a great deal of small wizarding children stuffing chocolate frogs into pockets that had not been built for them. Harry was 12 minutes onto the train when the compartment door slid back. Mind if I sit? The boy in the doorway had red hair and a faintly suspicious expression and a coat that was a hand-me-down from a much taller older brother. He was thin in the way of growth spurts not yet completed. He had a face that was, on first inspection, mostly freckles. Sit, Harry said. The redhead sat. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter. Ron's face did not change much, which Harry approved of. The eyes did flick once, but only once, to Harry's forehead and then back down. Ron did not say anything about the scar. Ron leaned back in his seat and let out a very long, very tired breath of a boy who had spent the morning being herded by a mother who loved him. You look at all like your dad, he said. Had a picture. You knew him. My folks did or knew about him. They were in the order. Right. Ron looked at Harry a long moment. You really live with Captain Rogers? Yes. Is he like the films? Most of the films got it wrong. Mum said he came to our house once. Did he? Not your captain. The captain came to our house in '89 when there was a thing with my dad. He was very polite. Mum made him sandwiches. He ate 3. She talks about it like it was Christmas. He'd have liked your mum's sandwiches. He sent her a card every Christmas after. He still does. Ron stared. He still does. Tell her hello from him. Ron sat back in his seat and exhaled, the long, slow exhale of a boy who has been deciding the shape of a person across from him and who has, on this evidence, decided. He stuck out his hand. Mate, he said. Harry shook it. Mate. Hermione found them 90 minutes later. She came down the corridor like a person on an errand, knocked on the door, slid it open, looked at Harry, said, Excellent, you're here. I have new findings about wand bonding theory, and sat down without waiting for an invitation. She had her notebook out. She had a stack of papers in her lap. She had on the train robe over her travel coat. Her hair was pulled back with great effort and was, even so, losing the battle. Hello, Harry. Hello, Hermione. Hello, she said to Ron with a tone she had not given Harry. You're Ron Weasley. My parents have heard of yours. Mum says your mum's voice carries. Ron flushed. It does, sorry. It's the family, Hermione said briskly in the tone of a person dismissing a small administrative concern. Harry, listen. The wand bonding theory I sent you in August is wrong. I've read 3 new sources. The thing about the brother wands is more important than I thought. We'll discuss it after the feast. Now, the sorting. I have read all 4 common methodologies, and I have written you the comparison you asked for. She put a folded sheet of paper on the seat. Harry picked it up and read it. Hermione. Yes, this is 12 pages. It is. Thank you. You're welcome. I shall be in Ravenclaw in all probability, though my parents would prefer Hufflepuff. Ron, you will be in Gryffindor. It will be on record long enough that you don't need to ask. Harry, may I ask which one you want? Gryffindor. You've decided. Yes, reason, Cap leads from the front. She looked at him a long moment. She wrote something down in her notebook. That is a better answer than the methodologies, she said. I am altering my taxonomy. All right, carry on. She got up and went back out into the corridor with the brisk efficiency of a person who had a great many compartments to visit between this one and the next. Ron watched her go. Is she always like that? She is. Right, you'll like her. I haven't decided. You will. They sat in companionable silence the rest of the way to the lake. The sorting hat was an old hat that had been an old hat in the boy's grandfather's time and had not improved its position. It sat on Harry's head a long minute. It rumbled at the bottom of his ear with a voice that was not quite a voice. Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind, either. There's talent, oh my yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. The captain has put a thumb on the scale, hasn't he just? Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. You'd be at the top of your house in 3 years. Where would you like to go, Mr. Potter? Harry, sitting on the stool, did not move his lips. He thought it, where you can lead from the front. Ah, he told you that. He didn't tell me, he showed me. Well then, the hat paused. Gryffindor, the Gryffindor table erupted. Harry stepped off the stool. He walked across the great room with the careful, even walk that he had walked across a Polish field at 7, and he sat down between an older boy he didn't know and a girl he didn't know, and he did not even once look at the staff table, because Cap had told him on the platform that the staff table was where the heaviest looks would come from, and that he should let the heaviest looks find him in their own time. He let them find him. The headmaster's table found him 8 minutes into the feast. Dumbledore caught Harry's eye across the room and lifted a half glass of pumpkin juice in a small, mild, grandfatherly toast. Harry, with the careful courtesy he had used at a Polish border, lifted his own glass in return. The man 2 seats down from the headmaster in black robes with a black collar watched the toast with an expression that was not pleased. He was thin. He had pale skin and dark eyes and dark hair, and he had a mouth that had been hard a long time. Harry catalogued him exactly the way Cap had taught him: face, height, posture, the kind of attention. The mouth was harder than the eyes. The eyes were sharp. He wrote in his journal much later in his dormitory by candle, Snape, potions. Looks at me like he is trying to find a thing he expected to be smaller. He closed the journal. He slept. The first flying lesson was 3 days later. It was a clear blue morning with a light wind out of the east. Madame Hooch lined up the first years on the lawn behind the castle, and she walked the length of the line with a thin no-nonsense whistle around her neck, and she said with the particular weary clarity of teachers who had been doing this lesson for 28 years, "All right, stand by your broom, right hand out over it, say up, up, say it like you mean it." Children all along the line said up. Brooms wobbled, brooms rolled. One broom hit a child in the face. The child whose broom had hit him in the face was not crying yet, but the crying was a matter of time. Harry held his right hand over the broom. Up, he said. The broom came up. It did not jump. It did not lurch. It rose with the precise, even velocity of a thing that had decided without fuss to do the thing. It came into his hand. It stopped. Madame Hooch, 20 feet away, paused midline. Harry felt her stop. He did not turn his head. He did not, on his face, do anything except continue to look mildly down the line at the next student. Sam, watching from the low stone wall behind the lawn with a coffee in one hand and an entirely flat expression, did the small, private smile of a man who had been waiting 4 years for this exact moment. The lesson did not, for Harry, go particularly well or particularly poorly until Neville Longbottom, near the end of the line, mishandled his broom and shot upward at 8 meters per second and hung, screaming, in the air above the lawn. Madame Hooch did not move fast enough. Harry moved. He did not particularly think about it. He had been raised by Sam. He swung his right leg over the broom, pushed off with the small, efficient motion Sam had drilled into him on the compound's helipad with 3 different rigs and a parachute harness, and lifted, hard and clean. The broom climbed. He took it at an angle because Sam had told him 100 times not to climb it vertical until you knew the airframe, and the airframe of this broom was a 50-year-old school broom and would not, by Sam's instinct, take a vertical. He came up under Neville at 6 meters, matched the boy's drift, leveled, reached out with his right hand, and caught the back of Neville's robe. He had the boy. He brought them both down at a glide, with the soft, confident descent of a kite flyer setting a kite into long grass. He set Neville on his feet. Neville's knees did not hold the first try. Harry caught him by the elbow with both hands and held him until they did. "You all right?" he said. Neville stared at him. Madame Hooch came up the lawn at a run. "Mr. Potter." "Yes, ma'am." She looked at him a long, quiet moment. She looked at Sam on the wall. She did not, by her face, decide what to be yet. "Inside," she said. "Both of you, Mr. Longbottom to the infirmary, Mr. Potter to the headmaster's office. I will accompany." Yes, ma'am. The walk to the headmaster's office was quiet. The corridors were full. Children at every corner saw the procession and went quiet as the procession passed. Harry did not, in his face, do anything. He walked at Madame Hooch's elbow. He listened with his careful, trained ear to every footstep behind them, and he counted 13 sets, and he kept walking, and at the foot of the stair he heard very softly the small specific shuffle of a man who had walked a compound corridor with him 100 times. He did not turn his head. "Bucky," he said very quietly. "Behind you, kid. How long? From the moment you got on the broom." "Cap, no. Cap is on a phone with the headmaster as we walk." "Good. You did all right out there." Sam said, "Don't climb vertical on an old airframe." Sam was right. "I know." They went up the stair. The gargoyle was already aside. The door was already open. Dumbledore stood up from behind his desk. He had on the half-moon spectacles and the grandfatherly smile and the gentle stoop of a man at the end of a long morning. He gestured Harry to a chair. He looked with great mild kindness at Madame Hooch. "Rolanda, thank you. I shall handle it from here. Albus, I shall send him back to lessons in good time." She went. The door closed. Bucky did not, on the wall behind, fully exit the corridor. He was in the doorway shadow at the foot of the headmaster's stair, with both hands in his pockets and an umbrella on his arm, and he did not come in. Dumbledore looked at Harry across the desk for a long moment. "Mr. Potter, headmaster. Gather you can fly. A little, sir, a little." Dumbledore's mouth moved, the small movement of a man giving himself permission to be amused. "You executed a rescue catch under sustained gravitational drift on an unknown airframe at speeds Madame Hooch has not seen in 14 years of teaching. The word little is an interesting choice of magnitude. Sir, Captain Rogers has been on the flu with me for the last 6 minutes. Yes, sir, he has assured me that you are not to be punished." "He's polite, sir. He is unfailingly polite, Mr. Potter. He has also told me rather more crisply that you saved a child from a 16-meter fall, and that the appropriate response of any educator is gratitude." Harry did not answer. Dumbledore's eyes behind the spectacles were not quite the eyes Harry had seen at the border. The grandfather was the same. Underneath the grandfather was a tired man, and underneath the tired man was a man who had not slept well in 11 years. He was looking at Harry the way the man at Ollivanders had looked at him. He was looking for a thing he had expected to find. He was not finding it. "Mr. Potter, sir, it has been suggested to me that you would benefit from a private tutor alongside your regular coursework. A tutor of mine, a man of considerable experience in the kind of magic that, you will likely need. Sir, would you like that?" Harry sat very still. He had been told by Cap in detail that this conversation would happen. He had been told what Dumbledore would say. He had been told what to say in return. He did not say what he had been told. He had decided, somewhere between the chair and the desk, to say a slightly different thing. "Headmaster, thank you. May I think about it?" "Of course, Mr. Potter." "Sir, while I'm thinking, may I ask a question, please? Is the tutor a member of the staff? Is the tutor a member of the order?" A small, careful pause. "He is." "Sir, is he the man who teaches me potions?" Dumbledore's mouth this time did not move. "He is." "Then, sir, with respect, thank you. And I'll learn potions from the man who teaches potions. I'll learn what else I need from the people who teach what else, and I have a tutor at home in some of what you mean. He's a muggle and you wouldn't approve, but he taught me how to fly, and he taught me how to read a room before I walked into it, and he's the reason I caught Neville this morning. So thank you. I'll keep my arrangement." Dumbledore looked at him a long moment. He nodded. He folded his hands together on the desk. "Mr. Potter, sir, I should very much like to have been Captain Rogers this morning. Sir, I shall recover. You may go." Harry stood. He did not bow. He nodded with the small, careful nod he had been giving since the morning at the border, and he went. Bucky fell into step with him at the bottom of the stair. "You all right?" "Yes." That conversation went the way Cap said it would. Almost. He asked if I'd think about it. I said yes, I shouldn't have. Why not? Because thinking about it lets him ask again later. Bucky stopped on the landing. He looked at Harry. He smiled, the small, careful smile he had been giving the boy since the wooden soldier at the kitchen table. "Kid, yes, you're going to be fine. I know. Walk slower, people are watching." Yes, they walked slower. Word of the catch was around the school by dinner. The Gryffindor common room that night had not yet decided what to be about Harry Potter, but a great many of them, between dinner and curfew, came over to where he sat in the corner with his journal open on his knee and Hermione across from him drawing wand bonding diagrams. And they did the awkward shuffling thing of children trying to make eye contact and not stare at his forehead. He met every one of their eyes for the second their eyes could hold, and he nodded, and he did not ask them to sit. Some of them sat anyway. He wrote in his journal that night by candle before he slept, day 3. Hat Gryffindor chose, Snape registers as old hostility not new. Dumbledore tested me on a private tutor, Snape declined. Lakeside flying lesson, caught Neville at 6 meters, Sam's training held, Bucky was on the stair. Hermione's diagrams, she revised wand bond theory, we'll discuss tomorrow. Ron, solid, he decided in 3 minutes, I trust the decision. Sentence still working, will give to Cap at Christmas. He closed the journal, he blew out the candle. He lay back in his 4-poster bed in the highest tower he had ever slept in, listening to the breath of 3 other boys in 3 other beds, and he thought about the wand on his bedside table, and he thought about a Polish dawn, and he thought about a kitchen window with a tree and a bird, and he slept. In the morning, somewhere along the western edge of the Black Lake, 3 men he could not yet see were already at work moving cargo down a corridor they thought no one was watching. They would not be wrong about the school. They would be wrong about the village a quarter-mile downwind, where, in a small attic room above a tavern, a man with a metal arm sat at a desk with a pair of binoculars and a notebook and a flask of black tea, and he watched and he wrote. The attack came on a Saturday in late October. It came at the lake. Harry was on the school broom Sam had quietly approved. Sam had inspected 3 brooms at the compound before letting Harry leave. Sam had marked one with a small dab of paint inside the spine. Harry had, by mid-October, made it his. Running drills with Ron and a 6th-year Gryffindor named Oliver Wood, who was a captain of something or other and had taken an interest in the boy who could catch a falling first-year at 6 meters. They were doing low passes along the shoreline. Sam, on the wall, watched. Oliver was, in the same minute, lecturing and laughing. Harry felt it before he saw it. He felt it the way Bucky had taught him to feel a corridor, as a small pressure change in a place that should not have had one, a thin shift in the way the air was sitting at his right ear. He banked left. He came round in a low, slow loop. He looked. There were 6 men in the trees on the far side of the lake, not Hogwarts staff, not Hogwarts students, not in school robes, long coats over muggle work clothes, the kind of coats men in Eastern Europe had worn to keep wands hidden along an inseam. They were spaced for a flanking advance. He came up over the water. Sam, he said into the small bone conduction comm he wore under his collar at all times, even at meals, because Cap had handed it to him at the train and said wear it always, son, and meant it. On you, tree line west, 6 bodies, they're staging. I have them. Bucky is moving from the village. How long? 3 minutes. He'll be at the boathouse. Get me a corridor over the water. I'm going to keep their eyes on the broom. Negative, Harry, you come in. We engage when Bucky's here. Sam, they're going to break for the castle. They've got a clear approach. Wood and Ron are on the lawn and don't know what they're seeing. A small pause. Fly, Sam said. But you fly the line I give you. I'm patching the line. A second voice came in over the comm. Cap, live from the compound. Son, sir. Sam runs the air. Bucky runs the ground. You're a piece on the board. Do exactly what they tell you. We'll talk after. Yes, sir. Go. Harry kicked the broom up. What happened next, Oliver Wood would tell the story of for the rest of his life. With the gloss, every story gathers in being told, but the gist of it was this. Harry Potter cut sideways across the surface of the Black Lake at speeds Madam, who had only ever seen him reach in private trials, with his right hand low along the broomstick, his eyes never leaving the tree line, and his body in the smooth, efficient line of a man who had been raised by a falcon and could feel the wind correct around him a half-second before it shifted. He did not throw a spell. He did not have to. He held a flight path that put him exactly where the 6 men in the trees had to track him to keep him in their wand sights, and he held it long enough for the 6 men to forget, for the first valuable 40 seconds of their advance, that there was anything else in the world. That was 40 seconds long enough for a man in a long coat with an umbrella that was not an umbrella to come up the lake path from Hogsmeade at a brisk soldier's walk and put himself between the trees and the school. Bucky did not draw a weapon. He had not, in the past 9 years, drawn a weapon on Hogwarts grounds. He did not now. He stood at the head of the lake path with one hand in his pocket and one hand on the umbrella, and he waited. The 6 men in the trees who had been watching the broom became aware over a slow, careful 3 seconds that there was a man at the head of the path. They turned partially. They evaluated. A small voice in Russian came across to them in the precise, easy diction of a man who had learned the language in a place where you learned it for a purpose. Walk back. You will not be touched. Walk forward and you will not walk. 3 of them walked back at once. 2 hesitated. The 6th raised his wand. The umbrella came up. It did not open. It did not need to. The first hex came out of the trees, and the umbrella took it, and the umbrella threw it sideways into the pine bark, where the pine bark hissed and split. The second hex came after, and the umbrella took that one too, and Bucky, in the small economical movement of a man who had been a sniper longer than most of these wizards had been alive, closed the 10 meters between him and the sixth man, and laid him out with the rim of the umbrella's brass-bound shaft and a left hook that was not even, by Bucky's standards, hard. The man went down. The fifth man broke and ran for the tree line. Harry, who had been threading sin curves over the water, came down at an angle Sam had taught him over a parking lot in upstate New York and cut a clean low arc behind the fleeing fifth man, and reached out with one foot at exactly Sam's calibrated angle and clipped the man's ankle. The man went down with the surprised expression of a person who has not previously been clotheslined from the air at 20 meters per second. Harry rolled the broom. He came back round. He landed at Bucky's elbow. He did not, in his face, do anything visible. "All right, kid," Bucky said quietly. "All right, got names. 2 of them I'd seen in Cap's file on the Sevastopol corridor. The one with the gray beard is the man Natasha tagged in March. Good kid. Where do we put them? Lake Path. Hogwarts ground stops them moving once we set the wards on them. Madam Hooch is on her way. I'll handle her. You go back to your broom. Wood and Ron need to think you've been doing a long stunt. Yes, and Harry. Yes, Cap is going to want to talk to you tonight. I know." Bucky put a hand once briefly against the side of the boy's head, in the precise way Cap had been doing it for 4 years, and then he turned to the path and he went to handle Madam Hooch. Harry went back to the broom. Oliver Wood, on the lawn, was waving his arms at him. "Potter, what the bloody hell was that?" "Flying lesson," Harry said, taking his stance. "That was not a flying lesson, that was an air show. Do that in a Quidditch match and I'll buy you dinner every Saturday for the rest of the year." "It was a flying lesson," Harry said, and pushed off and was up. Ron, on the lawn, watched him go. Ron did not say anything. Ron's eyes had clocked the men in the trees and the man at the path and the umbrella. Ron had grown up in a house where, on at least 3 nights of his life, Aurors had come through the kitchen at strange hours. Ron knew, the way certain children know, what a thing on his grass looked like when it was in operation. He did not say anything. That night in the Gryffindor common room, when Harry came down from Owling Cap and sat by the fire with his journal, Ron took the chair across from him. "You all right?" "Yes, that was an operation." "Yes. Anyone hurt? Number? Anyone going to be?" "Probably." "Then we'd better get on with it." Harry looked up at him. Ron had not phrased it as a question. He had phrased it the way men phrase things at kitchen tables in old houses where Aurors come through at strange hours. He held Harry's eye without flinching. "You and me," Ron said, "and Hermione, and whoever else makes the cut, we're in." "All right, Ron, just so you know. I wasn't going to say it the first night, I'm saying it now." "All right," Harry wrote that night by candle before he slept, day 43, Lake, 6 bodies, Bucky and me, no fatalities, 3 captured, 2 ran. Ron volunteered, Hermione has been volunteered by herself since August, we are a unit. Cap will say it when he writes back, he will be proud and he will be cautious, and the proud will go in the letter and the cautious will go in the next visit. Sentence is firmer, not ready to give it. Soon, he closed the journal, he blew out the candle. Chapter 4, Recon 8 TKARKONOS. It is sometimes useful to describe a war by its administrative metaphors, in part because the administrative metaphors are accurate, and in part because they keep the people inside the war from talking about it like a film. The conflict that occupied Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, Natasha Romanoff, Sam Wilson, and latterly Harry Potter between 1989 and 1995 was not a film. It was a logistics problem. The Wizards moved goods. The Wizards moved goods because the goods were power, and the power had to be in particular places at particular times to do particular work, and any movement of any kind across an international border in the late 20th century was a thing that armies and agencies and analysts cared about. S.H.I.E.L.D. had been asked very quietly in the back room of an embassy in Vienna in 1989 whether it would care about magical movement. S.H.I.E.L.D. had said yes. The Avengers had been given the operational picture. And from that day forward, the kind of border interceptions that the Order of the Phoenix had been running alone, badly, on shoestring budgets and partial intelligence, had been running alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. interceptions, with proper sensors, satellite-tasked overwatch, and when needed. A falcon and a man with a metal arm. There was a name for the strategic posture. The name had been settled in a Pentagon subcommittee in 1990. The name was a deliberately bureaucratic phrase that nobody in the compound much liked, but nobody had a better substitute for, and so it had stuck. The phrase was the magical Cold War. It was a Cold War the way the actual Cold War had been won. A slow, accumulation of corridor movements and clipped operations and small, precise public denials, in service of a confrontation that everyone in it understood was, sooner or later, going to stop being slow and accumulating. In the autumn of 1993, in a small operations briefing room buried under the compound's southwest hangar, a 13-year-old boy in a S.H.I.E.L.D. field jacket too large for him stood at parade rest in front of a wall-mounted screen and listened with the absolute attention he had brought to his life since he was 7, while his guardian briefed him on his first command. "All right, son, look at the screen." The screen showed a ridge. The ridge was a long, pale crescent running west-southwest across a topographical relief of the Polish-Czech border. The shading at the top of the crescent indicated elevation. The shading at the base of the crescent indicated, in red, a corridor that SHIELD analysts had been quietly tracking for 14 months. "This is the Karkonoss, highest point Sniezka, 1,500 meters, tree line at about 12, below that mixed forest broken with old logging tracks, above that scree and weather. The corridor runs the south slope from Jelenia Gora to Vr. The corridor is moving cursed cargo, which we've been able to identify in 3 intercepts over the last year, all on Hermione's reading." Cap was not, at this moment, the man who had read history at a boy's bedside for 4 years. He was the man at the front of the operations briefing room. The voice was the same and the voice was different. Harry had not in 2 years of school met a tone so familiar to his bones, and he listened with all of him. "The cargo," Cap said, "is consistently flagged by the field detectors as resonant. That is, it pings the way the Granger artifact at the Hampshire event pinged. Hermione's hypothesis, refined over the summer, is that what's moving across this corridor is not weapons-grade material in the way we conventionally use the word, but anchor-grade. That is, components of an arrangement that holds something to a place." He paused, he looked at Harry. "Do you remember the chapter Hermione mailed you in August?" "Yes, sir." "Repeat the operational sentence." Harry, at parade rest, said it without inflection. "A working built of 7 anchors will hold a soul to a world. To break one is to weaken the architecture. To break the architecture is to make the soul mortal." "Right." Cap looked at the screen. "We do not know how many anchors he has. We do not know if all of them are anchored. We do not know where they are. What we do know is that material consistent with anchor-grade resonance has been moving along this corridor at a steady rate for 14 months, and that 2 intercepts have brought back cargo that lit up Hermione's resonance assay. This morning's intercept will be your first command, son." Harry stood at parade rest. "Yes, sir." "You have read the OPORD?" "Yes, sir." "Read me the assignments." Harry turned slightly. There was a small file box on the table to his right. He had written the OPORD himself that morning under Cap's supervision. He read from the cover sheet without looking down at it. "Recon Team Alpha, Tactical Lead, Potter, Intel, Granger, Heavy, Weasley, Overwatch, Shield Ranger, Maddox, Shadow, Barnes. Mission: locate, identify, and intercept a single corridor packet at Section 6 of the Karkonoss South Corridor. Engagement to be defensive. Capture, not kill. Cargo to be brought back. Hostiles to be brought back where practicable. Insertion via Shield Quinjet at 0300 local. Extraction via the same Quinjet at hot standby. Operational window 45 minutes. Exfil contingency downridge to Vr. Communications, bone conduction on Freak 7, Avengers handshake. Why is Barnes a Shadow, not Overwatch? Because, sir, we have to know if I can do it without him. And why Maddox? Because I asked for him. He taught me marksmanship. I know his decision speed. And why Weasley? Because he asked. And because he has watched my back in a corridor before. And why Granger? Because, sir, with respect, she would walk in anyway. Bucky, in the corner of the room with his arms crossed, did the small, careful smile. Cap nodded once. "And your sentence, son?" The room went quiet. It was, in the way these things are, not a question. It was a thing Cap had been asking Harry once every 3 months since Christmas of his first year at school, sometimes formally and sometimes over toast, in the steady, patient method of a man who knew that the only thing more important than knowing your sentence was being able to say it under stress, in the 7th hour of a movement, in the back of a transport when your hands had been on someone else's shoulder all evening. Harry, at parade rest, said it. "You don't leave anyone behind, sir. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. The cannons get less interesting when you've decided that." Cap looked at him a long moment. "That's my sentence, son. I borrowed yours. You didn't borrow it. You earned it. You said you would tell me yours when it was firmer. You've been firming it for 2 years. Yes, and—" Harry's eyes did not move from Cap's eyes. "I command my line," he said. "If the line breaks, it breaks behind me, not in front of me. Anyone who walks with me walks home." Cap took a slow breath. "Then go command your line, son. I'm in the op. Bucky's on you. Sam's on the air. Tash is on the comm. We will not save you. You will run the op. Are you ready?" "Yes, sir." "All right. Brief your team." He briefed his team at 1:20 in the morning in the briefing alcove off the Quinjet's hold, with the cargo door closed and the engines spooling. Hermione had a pencil in her teeth and a clipboard with 3 colored tabs. Ron had on a borrowed Shield Ranger's jacket and a face that had clearly been resolving on the flight over to be calm about the fact that there was now a chance he was going to fight Death Eaters in a forest. Maddox, leaning against the bulkhead, was reading a paperback novel he had nearly finished and was now hoping to finish before insertion. Harry stood at the front of the alcove. He had on the shield field jacket. He had the wand in his pocket. He had Sam's compass on his wrist. He had a small map, 2 pages, drawn by his own hand from satellite imagery the night before. 2 minutes, the three of them came to attention. Brief is short. We will land at the eastern shoulder of Section 6. We have 45 minutes. Granger, you and I will move in along the south spur. Weasley and Maddox, you'll take the parallel track and set overlapping fields of fire on the corridor's exit. If the cargo comes through, we intercept and capture. If a hostile force comes through with it, Maddox and Weasley engage from the rear. Granger and I take the cargo. If the corridor turns out to be a ghost movement and the packet doesn't come, we exfil at the 40-minute mark and we run a second cycle next week. Are we clear? Clear, said Granger. Clear, said Weasley. Clear, said Maddox without lifting his eyes from the novel. Maddox, finish the chapter on the bird. 3 pages. You have 3 pages. Maddox finished his chapter. The Quinjet's ramp dropped them at the eastern shoulder of Section 6 at 3 minutes past 3, on a moonless night, in a pine forest that smelled the way pine forests in Eastern Europe in October smell, which is to say that the smell would stay in Harry's clothes for 2 days afterward, the way certain smells do. They split. Maddox and Weasley went left along the upper track. Granger and Potter went right along the lower, with Bucky 300 meters behind them, invisible on the side of the slope where the tree line broke into rock. Granger walked at Harry's elbow, the small, fast walk of a person who had been told to be quiet and was being quiet, and who, having confirmed she was being quiet, was now thinking about other things. Harry, I have something to tell you. Now, is it operational? It is informational and may become operational. There is a man working this corridor at the staff level. I have read every Death Eater profile in the last 3 years of SHIELD files. The voice print Bucky pulled off the third intercept is one I cannot match to the known list. And I have a hypothesis. Tell me, the man is Dolohov. Harry's pace did not change. Antonin Dolohov, he said. Yes. You'd have written it in a letter. I did. You haven't checked your owls today. I haven't. Tell me what you know about him. He is, of all the Death Eaters on the active list, the only one I would call a soldier. He was a Soviet political officer before he was a Death Eater. He has run combined arms operations on 3 different fronts in 3 different decades. He is not, in person, theatrical. He will be the first wand in the line tonight, and he will be the first wand to stop firing if the line is broken, because he will decide it is better to lose this packet than this team. Decisive. Do we have a kill order on him? We have a capture order with discretion. Then we capture, yes, Granger, yes, thank you for telling me. You're welcome. They moved on. Cap, 3 kilometers behind them, was in a glassed-in observation post on a hilltop that did not, by Czech land records, exist. He had a thermal screen on the left wall and a wand resonance screen on the right and a comm headset on his ears, and he had on the wide horizontal map laid across the table in front of him 3 small wooden tokens shaped like soldiers in 3 colors that Bucky had carved for the boy years ago and that Bucky had quietly placed on Cap's command table that morning with no comment before the briefing. Cap moved them one by one as the team moved. Sam. On you, position of the corridor packet. 2 minutes out, they're moving fast. They have an outrider on the upper track, looks like a runner. Tasha, I see the runner. Holding. He moved the white token forward 1 square. He moved the blue token 1 square right. Bucky, on you. Eyes on the boy. He is to run the line. We assist on his call. Understood. Cap looked at the table. He looked at the topographical contours. He looked at the timing. He said very quietly, he has a choice in about 3 minutes. He said it to nobody. He moved the white token forward another square. The choice came at the bend in the lower track where the south spur met the central spine. The corridor packet, 3 men in dark coats with a wooden case between them, of the dimensions Hermione had predicted from her assay, emerged from the cover of 2 large boulders 10 meters above where Granger and Potter were lying flat in the pine duff. The outrider on the upper track was already past Maddox and Weasley, who had pulled in tight against the trunks and let him pass. Then the rest of the line came through. It was not 3 men, it was 9 men. 6 were Death Eaters with wands, 3 were not Death Eaters. They were Muggle-hired hands with rifles of a kind Cap recognized at once from satellite stills as the kind Polish irregulars had been carrying in Sevastopol in March. Hermione, on her stomach with the binoculars, looked at Harry. She did not say it. He did not say it. He keyed the comm. Eagle, this is Alpha. Alpha, numbers wrong, 9 bodies, 3 Muggle long arms in the mix. A pause, not long, Cap's pause. You have the call, son. Disengage and observe. You have the call, son. Disengage and observe. A second pause. Confirmed Alpha. Disengage and observe. Maddox and Weasley hold position. Bucky hold position. Eagle out. Hermione looked at him. He did not look back. He did not for a long moment do anything. He watched the 9 men move down the corridor. He watched the wooden case go. He watched the corridor go quiet. He waited until Sam on the comm said the last man had crossed the ridge. He keyed back in. Eagle Alpha, Alpha, reset. We bring the team home. We brief. We run a second cycle next week when the numbers are correct. Recommend SHIELD analysts cross-reference the Muggle long arms with the Polish irregular list for an ID. Concur Alpha, bring them home. Eagle out. He stood. He looked at Hermione. He gave her a hand up. They began the slow, careful walk back along the south spur. Granger walked next to him very quietly for 30 meters. Then she said, in the precise tone she used when she had been waiting, "You wanted to take them. Yes, you'd have lost a man, maybe 2, and the cargo, probably the cargo too. The case had a glyph along the side that Cap's resonance screen would have caught from the op. If they'd had time to break it, we'd have lost the recon and got nothing. You read all that in about 8 seconds. I read it in about 3. I let the other 5 be for confidence. Harry, yes, you did the harder thing. It's what Cap would have done. That's not the point. You did it." Harry walked. "Yes," he said after a moment, "I did." The walk back to the Quinjet was long. The night was cold. The pine duff was wet under their boots. Bucky fell into step with them on the last 100 meters with his coat collar up and his metal hand in his pocket and his eyes everywhere at once. "Kid," he said, "yes, decision was right. I know. It is, however, the first time you have ordered 4 people not to fire who all wanted to fire. I know. It is also the first time you have ordered yourself not to fire when you wanted to fire. I know. That second one is the one to remember. I know. Good." Bucky did not say anything else. At the Quinjet, Maddox climbed up the ramp with the small, careful tread of a SHIELD ranger who had, in his career, walked away from far more operations than he had walked into. He found a seat on the bench. He took his paperback out of his jacket. He found his page. He read. Ron sat down across from him in his too large jacket, with his face pale from the cold and bright at the eyes. "Harry, yes, we did not engage. Number, that was correct. Yes, all right." Hermione, on the second bench, was already writing notes in her log. She had 3 pencil colors and was using all 3. The ramp came up. The engines spooled. The Quinjet rose, very gently, over the ridge. At the debrief in the operations room an hour later, with the 4 of them in chairs and Bucky at the wall and Sam at the door and Natasha behind the screen and the wooden token still on the table, Cap stood at parade rest. He had the Ops Wand resonance log in his hand. He had read it 3 times on the flight back. He set it on the table. "All right." He looked in turn at each of them. He looked at Harry last. "Tactical lead. Sir, walk me through the disengage. Numbers wrong. 3 Muggle long arms in the line of fire of 2 of my people. Engagement under those conditions would have lost a man and risked the cargo. Disengagement preserved both. Reset for a second cycle when the numbers are correct. And the Muggle long arms, read me into that. Sir, those were not contracted thugs. Those were Polish irregulars. They carry weapons we've identified in the Sevastopol corridor. Their inclusion in this packet means Dolohov is integrating his ground force with his magical force. He is treating this corridor as a real operation, not as a wizard movement. Correct, son. Granger, walk me through the artifact." Hermione stood. She put a small bag on the table. She opened it. Inside was a long-range scanner readout, 3 pages, color-printed, with annotations in her hand. The resonance signature of the case matches, in the 83rd percentile, the signature Captain Rogers' team collected from the Hampshire event. It is also a perfect match for the compound stored signature on the Cypriot intercept of 1992. I am now 94% confident that what is moving along this corridor is anchor-grade material, specifically the material used to construct or reinforce a sole anchor of the kind we have been calling, by way of shorthand, a Horcrux. She paused. She put the second page down. "More importantly, sir, the cargo on this corridor is consistently moving from east to west. East of this corridor on the satellite passes I have requested is a single location with consistent high-resonance blade. A fortified site at the western edge of the Carpathian Range, registered in Romanian land records as a private residence belonging to a man named Karkaroff who has been dead by SHIELD's records for 6 years. The site is in our terminology a cathedral. It is in his terminology the seat." She looked up. "That is the center of the war, sir." The room went quiet. Cap looked at the readout. He looked at Harry. "Son, sir, you commanded." "Yes, sir." "Sit down." Harry sat down. Cap put one hand briefly on the boy's shoulder in the same way he had been putting it for 6 years, and he held it there a count of 3. "Granger, sir, layer your readout over the Karkanos corridor and the Sevastopol corridor. I want a single map by morning. It will be on your desk by 0500. Maddox, Weasley, the two of you are now until further notice part of Team Alpha. Maddox, you have leave next week. Take it. Don't come back tired. Weasley. When this is over, you will write your mother a longer letter than you have written her in your life, and I will read it before it goes. Have an arrangement with the Order. You are also under the Order's protection from this morning forward. Are we clear? Yes, sir, said Maddox. Yes, sir, said Ron quietly. Bucky, compound's eyes on the cathedral starting at 0600. Satellite tasking out of Norfolk. Sam on the orbital. Tasha, get me Dolohov's last 6 months. I want to know who he is at home before I know who he is on a ridge. Are we clear? Clear, Cap, said Sam. Clear, said Natasha. Cap straightened. Then we have work. The room broke up. Harry at the door paused. Cap was at the table with the readout in one hand and the wooden tokens in the other, and his head was bent over the map. Sir. Son, that's the center, Cathedral, Carpathians. Yes, that's where we go. Yes, and when, Cap looked up. He looked at the boy for a long quiet moment. He did not lie. He had never lied to him. Soon, son, yes. I will not lie to you about the size of it. The cathedral is the seat. To take the seat, we will not be running a recon. We will be running a war. We are going to want all of him in the room when we do it. We are going to want him there because we cannot leave the seat with him still in the world. Because if we leave the seat with him still in the world, the next seat will go up somewhere we cannot reach. We are going to set the trap so that he comes, and we will close the trap, and we will end the war. Sir, yes, I want to lead. I know, son, you will let me. I will not let you. You will earn it, and when you have earned it, son, you will lead. Then I will earn it. I know, son, I know. Harry nodded once. He turned. He went. When he was gone, Cap stood at the table a long time with the readout in his hand. Bucky was the only other person left in the room. Bucky had a coffee in his hand. He had a face that was, on Bucky, the most expressive face Bucky had. Stevie. Buck, you sure? I'm sure. He's 13. He's 13 and he disengaged. Yes. He disengaged because 4 other people would have died, Buck. He didn't disengage because he was scared. He disengaged because he could count. He could count and he could feel the line of his people and he could feel mine and he made the right call. He is 13 and he commanded. I know. He's not going to be 13 when the cathedral falls. Number, he's going to be 14. All right. And Buck, yeah, he's going to be ready. Bucky did not say anything. He drank his coffee. He looked at the table, he looked at the wooden tokens, he picked the white one up. He carved this himself, you know, he said. Last summer, I gave him a knife, he carved me one back. He set the token down on the cathedral position on the map. All right, Stevie, we go to work. Antonin Dolohov, in a small smoke-stained room over a tavern in Jelenia Gora, did not sleep that night. He had a cigarette in one hand and a glass in the other and a map on the wall, and the map had a single pin in it that had not been there the day before. The pin was at the eastern shoulder of Section 6. He had put the pin there at 4 in the morning, when his runner had come back along the upper track with the news that the corridor packet had moved through the section unmolested. Dolohov did not, at first, take this news at face value. He had been at war a long time. He had been at war long enough that he distrusted, on principle, any operation that went as planned. Operations that went as planned, in his experience, went as planned because the people who would otherwise have disrupted them had been busy disrupting them in some other way that no one had yet noticed. He poured a second glass. He looked at the map. He moved one finger along the south spur of the ridge and stopped at the bend. He moved his finger again. He stopped at the parallel track. He moved his finger a third time. He stopped at the lake tower position in his own intelligence summary, the one he had received from a contact in Vienna in March, the one that had listed 7 Avengers-affiliated personnel known to be on European soil, and had put the name S. Rogers at the top of the list in green ink. Mr. Rogers, he said in soft Russian to the empty room. Mr. Rogers and his small black-haired boy. He poured a third glass. He did not drink it. He went to the window. He stood there a long time looking out at the pre-dawn line of the Carcanos, where the ridge ran along the horizon like the back of a sleeping animal. You did not engage, he murmured. He thought about that. You did not engage because I was carrying long arms with my line. He thought about that. You knew I was carrying long arms with my line because you have been watching my line for a year. He thought about that. You did not engage because you have decided to make the engagement somewhere else, somewhere of your choosing. He nodded once to himself with the small grave nod of a man confirming a hypothesis he had hoped not to confirm. You are not, he said quietly, an ordinary opposition. He closed the curtain. He sat down at the desk. He took out a sheet of his own paper, a fountain pen, and a small bottle of black ink. He composed a letter to his master, in handwriting that had not changed since he had been a political officer in Murmansk. My lord, the Carcanos corridor was cleaned tonight. The packet arrived at Vrklabai intact. I do not, however, believe the corridor is secure. I believe we are being watched at the operational level by Captain S. Rogers of the American agency known as SHIELD, and that he has been watching us for at least a year. I believe his choice not to interdict the packet tonight indicates a longer plan, and that the longer plan is to make us come to a single point of his choosing. I recommend, with respect, that we accelerate our timing. Allow me to dictate the place. We make Rocklow a city he must defend. He will move to defend it. While he is moving to defend it, we will conclude our work elsewhere. He read the letter twice. He sealed it with red wax. He gave it to a small dark owl that had been waiting on his sill for 2 hours. The owl took the letter east. Dolohov went back to the window. The ridge in the gray pre-light was beginning to be visible against the sky. "Mr. Rogers," he said quietly in English with the careful diction of a man who had learned the language for a purpose. "Mr. Rogers and his small black-haired boy, I look forward to meeting you both." He closed the curtain. In the compound's operations room, 8 hours later, Hermione Granger laid a single sheet of paper across the wide horizontal map and put a small lead weight on the corner. The sheet showed the Carcanos corridor, the Sevastopol corridor, the smaller Trabzon line, and 3 secondary tributaries that she had identified in the past 4 months from satellite passes and intercept logs. Every line converged on a single point. The point was a fortified property at the western edge of the Carpathians, in a wooded valley above a village named Sayashtul, in Romanian land records registered to a private owner named Karkaroff, who had been dead, by SHIELD's records, since 1987. Cap, with one hand on the map and one hand on the back of a chair, looked at it for a long, quiet minute. "That's it," he said. "That's it," said Hermione. "How many anchors? My best estimate is 6. He is, by every signal we are reading, missing 1. The cargo on this corridor has, in my read, been replacement material for an anchor he has lost or that has degraded. If he completes the work, he is back to 7. If he loses one before he completes it, we have a window." "How wide a window?" "Days, perhaps weeks, not months." "All right." Cap looked at the map. He moved a small wooden token, the white one, onto the cathedral position. He looked at Bucky. "Buck, yeah. Brief Fury this afternoon. I want operational concurrence by Friday. You want me at the briefing. I want you at the briefing. I want you to talk Fury into agreeing to a joint movement with the Order. We can't do this without the Wizards. The Order can't do this without us. He has to hear it from both of us." "Roger that, Sam. On you. Get me an air picture of every passable approach to that valley. 3 options. I want to know what we do if we lost the front door, the side door, and the roof. On it, Tasha. Here, you're going to Dumbledore tonight, you and Harry." Natasha looked at him. She did not say anything. "He has to meet Harry on the inside of this, not the outside," Cap said quietly. "He has to be in the room when the boy lays out the operation. You're going because he respects you and because he is afraid of you in equal measure, and that is the correct ratio of feelings for a man receiving this kind of news. Yes, Harry, sir. You will lay it out for him yourself. I will not be in the room. The Order has to see you giving the brief. We are going to ask them to put their people under a command that has, at one end of the table, a 13-year-old in a shield jacket. They are going to do it. They are going to do it because you are going to make them do it by being, in the meeting, the man you have already become. Yes, sir. Bring the journal. Yes. The meeting was at Hogwarts, in the staff room, with a long oak table that had not, in the headmaster's lifetime, hosted a 13-year-old at the head of it. There were 11 Order members in chairs, McGonagall at the headmaster's right hand, Mad-Eye Moody at the foot, Snape against the wall in a corner, Lupin and Tonks beside one another with their hands not quite touching. Natasha stood at Harry's left shoulder in a plain dark coat, with no visible weapon and no need of one. Harry stood at the head of the table with the OPORD map laid out and a single sheet of Hermione's overlay on the top, weighted at the corner with a small lead disc. "Good evening." The room did not on the whole answer. Snape's eyes did not leave the table. "I am Harry Potter. I am presenting on behalf of the Joint SHIELD Avengers Order Operations Cell an analysis of the strategic position. There is a single map. The map has a single point. The point is the cathedral in the Carpathians. I will walk you through the analysis. I will not this evening be asking for a vote. The captain has asked me to brief, not to canvass. After the brief, I will leave the room. You will discuss. We will reconvene in the morning." He looked at Moody. Moody, with the magical eye spinning, looked at him a long, long moment. Moody nodded once, very slightly. Harry began. He walked them through the corridors. He walked them through the assay. He walked them through the cathedral. He walked them through Dolohov in 2 sentences that made Lupin's mouth flatten and Tonks' fingers tighten on her partner's. He walked them through the artifact and the anchors and the missing 7th and the window. He walked them through the operational concept, a coordinated movement that drew the man out by threatening a thing he could not afford to lose, and that closed on the cathedral while he was elsewhere. He spoke for 14 minutes. When he finished, he looked up. McGonagall at the headmaster's right had not moved. Her mouth was a small, careful line. Her eyes were not on Harry. Her eyes were on Dumbledore. Dumbledore was looking at Harry. He was looking at Harry the way the man at Ollivanders had looked at him. He was looking at Harry the way one looks at a thing one has been waiting on for a very long time, and that one has, at last, recognized. Mr. Potter, headmaster. You will leave us now. We will reconvene at 8. Yes, sir. Mr. Potter, sir. Thank you. Harry nodded once. He gathered the map. He walked out with Natasha at his elbow. The door closed. In the corridor, Natasha put a hand once, very briefly, against the back of his head in the way Cap had been putting it for 6 years, and she said in her clipped, quiet way, "Good. All right. You did all right. I know." They walked back toward the stair. In the morning, the order voted yes. Chapter 5, The Cold War Goes Hot. Rocklow in early March had the look of a city that had been told something it had not quite believed. The odor ran cold and gray through its center, between embankments still ridged with the late snow. The trams were running. The bakeries were open. The newsstands at the foot of the cathedral bridge were stacked with morning papers folded under their string weights, and the small wire chairs outside the cafes along Swidnica had been put out at first light because the proprietors were optimistic men and women, and optimism, in Poland in March of 1995, was a habit nobody wanted to break. The cafes would not, on the whole, be open by lunch. The thing came down across the city in pieces. There was no single front. There was no announced attack. There was a tram that derailed on the Grunwaldsky Bridge at 12 minutes past 8, and a power transformer on the south embankment that opened up at 19 minutes past 8, and a small crowd of late commuters at the foot of the Cathedral Island Bridge that at 23 minutes past 8 looked up and saw, against the morning cloud, a shape that did not belong and broke and ran. The shape was a great pale bird. It was made not of feathers but of something thinner. It moved across the sky in long, slow, lapping arcs, and it did not, for the first 15 minutes, seem to do anything other than be present. The being present was the operation. It held the eye. It held the eye long enough that the men in long coats coming up out of the trams, and the men in long coats coming down the south embankment, and the men in long coats stepping out from doorways along Swidnica were not, for the first valuable minutes, fully observed. The first call came in at the Shield station at 8:27. The second came in at 8:29. By 8:31, Steve Rogers had on his coat, and the shield was in his hand, and the Quinjet on the south pad was already lifting. "Sam, on you. How long?" 40 minutes from the compound, 15 from Brussels. "We are not getting to Brussels. 25 from Berlin if we burn it, burning it." "Bucky, with you." "Harry." A pause. Harry's voice came in on the line from a corridor in Hogwarts where by McGonagall's quiet, quick order he had been pulled out of Charms 90 seconds before. "Sir. Rocklaw, civic structure attack. We are deploying. You and Granger and Weasley will take the fluid line from McGonagall's office. Shield has a route established. You will meet me at the south embankment. You will not engage independently. You will not, repeat not, engage independently. You will rally on me and I will brief on arrival. Are we clear?" "Clear, sir. Bring the journal, bring the wand, bring your sentence." "Yes, sir." The line went down. Cap turned to the operations console. "Tasha. Here, you have the cathedral surveillance on screen, anything. He is moving. Who? The man. He has left the cathedral. He moved at 08:15. The packet at the Carcanos last night was bait. He's at Rocklow. Steve did not say anything for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Good. We were going to have to bring him out. He has saved us the work." "Stevie." "Yes, Buck." "He is going to know we are coming, and he is going to make us pay to come." "I know, Buck. We are going anyway. Tell Sam to bring the south embankment up on the orbital." "Up." Sam, in the air, was already on it. He had a screen on his left wrist showing the south embankment from a satellite tasking that had been requested at 08:28 and granted at 08:29 because Director Fury was a man whose name on a request did not require explanation. The south embankment on the screen was a long pale ribbon along the river, with small dark figures in coats moving along it in a way Sam recognized. "Cap, Sam, they are not here to kill people. What are they here to do?" "They are here to make us watch them do it." "How many civilians on the embankment?" "Hundreds. The trams are still running. The buses are still running. The Polish authorities have not yet declared anything. They will in 7 minutes. They will. Sam, Cap, you make it a sky we own. On it." The Quinjet came in over Rocklow at 9:10, low and tight, and it did not, in the cresting of the city limit, slow down for ceremony. It went straight to the south pad of the Polish Ministry of Internal Affairs district building, which had been requisitioned by SHIELD in 1991 in an agreement nobody outside the relevant rooms had ever read. Steve stepped off the ramp with the shield on his arm and Bucky 3 paces behind him, and 3 shield ground crew were waiting with compacts and Polish maps and a single short briefing they had been told to give in under 2 minutes. They gave it in 1 minute 40. Steve listened to all of it. He did not move during the brief except to set the shield on its rim against the bench and to put on the bone conduction headset and the lapel pin that gave him voice override on the city's emergency net. When the brief was done, he said, "Where is Harry?" "Flew in at 0850. He is at the South Embankment with Granger and Weasley. He has the secondary comm. He is in position." "What position?" "He set up at the foot of the Cathedral Island Bridge. He has eyes on the tram bridge and eyes on the South Embankment proper. He has cleared 3 cafe fronts of civilians. He is, in his words, holding a line." Steve was quiet a moment. "Sam, on you, air picture. Air picture is sky-owned in 2 more minutes. I have a Death Eater squad of 7 moving down Swidnica. I have a second squad of 6 taking up positions on the rooftops along Pyaskawa. I have a third squad of 5 that just split off the second and is going for the Cathedral Island Bridge. That's the third squad that wants to get to my son. That's the third squad that wants to get to your son. Bucky, on you. You take the rooftops along Pyaskawa from above, quietly. On it, Sam, make the second squad regret being on a roof. On it, Harry, a pause, sir. Third squad, 5 hostiles coming at you down the bridge. I have eyes, sir. They came onto the bridge at 0912. They are moving in 2 and 3 formation. Civilians, cleared. I have the bridge to myself and Granger and Weasley and a Polish auxiliary policeman named Tomek who refused to leave. He has a service pistol and he knows how to use it. Acknowledged. The squad is for you. Take it. Yes, sir. And Harry, sir. There will be a second wave. He is sending one. You will not see it because the bird will hold your eye. Watch the bird. The wave will be where the bird is not. Yes, sir. Take your bridge, son. Taking my bridge, sir. Steve put the shield on his arm. He turned to the lieutenant of the shield ground crew. He said, "South Embankment with me. We make a line. I want the line on this map." He pointed from the Grunwaldski to the Pyaskawa with a soft node at the foot of the Cathedral Island Bridge. "The soft node is my son's. We do not collapse onto it. We rotate around it. Are we clear?" "Clear, sir." "Then we are moving." They were moving. There is a way of moving through a city at war that the captain had not been able to do in 50 years. He did it now. He came up Swidnica at the head of a wedge of 20 shield ground operatives and 6 Polish auxiliaries and 4 order wizards who had come in by portkey at 8:45. And he opened the street with the shield up and his free hand pointing, and the Death Eater squad on Swidnica, who had been expecting to be fought by a wizarding force of 5 or 6, did not have the muscle memory to fight a combined arms wedge under a man with a shield. They broke at the second exchange. They reformed in a side alley and tried a flanking move. The flanking move ran into Tasha, who had come up the side alley from the river side, and the flanking move did not survive Tasha. The pale bird in the sky moved 1 slow lap across the city. It did not, on the second lap, look pale anymore. Sam was over the Pyaskawa rooftops by 9:14. He came in low with his wings folded close, and he did the maneuver Harry had watched him drill on the helipad at the compound 20 times that Cap had insisted on. He laid a strafing arc the length of the second squad's rooftop line, with calibrated munitions that were not, by international agreement, supposed to exist. The rooftop line broke. 2 men jumped. 1 man tried to apparate. The satellite-tasked anti-apparition net shield had laid over the city at 0900 did not allow it. The man's apparition collapsed at the threshold, and he sat down on the roof and put his head in his hands. Bucky was on the rooftops by 9:15. He did not, on the rooftops, do what Sam had done. He did what Bucky always did. He went very, very quiet, and he found a position with a clean line down the long axis of the Pyaskawa, and he waited. He waited because he had read on the way in the operational intelligence on the woman. She was on the rooftops too. She was not in the second squad. She had come in on a separate vector at 08:55 and had moved across 3 rooftops in absolute silence in the 7 minutes since. She was small and pale and dark-haired, and her coat was the color of slate, and she walked along a rooftop at a kind of unhurried gait that, to a sniper of 40 years' experience, was the gait of a person who had spent decades in places where being unhurried was the privilege of the apex predator. Bellatrix Lestrange. Bucky did not even now take the shot. The shot was not his. Cap had given the air to Sam and the rooftops to Bucky, and Bucky had read the order, but he had also read the underline. The underline had been Bellatrix. The underline had been, "She is going for the bridge. She will be on the bridge before you can stop her. You will close the duel only if it cannot be closed by the boy." Bucky was a man who took orders. He waited. On the Cathedral Island Bridge, Harry Potter, age 13, in a shield-field jacket and the Gryffindor tie his roommate Seamus had insisted he wear because Seamus had said something Harry had not entirely understood about how a man wore his colors when he went to war, took his 5 Death Eaters in the order he had planned to take them. He took the first one with a body bind from the cover of an overturned cafe table. He took the second one with a disarming charm thrown from his own hip at a distance that should not have been a hip throw, and Granger behind him said quietly into the comm, "That's the wrong distance," and Harry said, I know it works," and the wand of the second man was, a half-second later, in Hermione's hand. The third and fourth came up the bridge in coordinated stride. Ron, who had been lying flat behind the parapet on the west side with the shield-issue carbine cap, had taken 3 months to convince Mrs. Weasley about, took the third man at the kneecap with 1 round and the fourth man at the shoulder with 2. Both men went down. Both men were captured before they had stopped going down by the Polish auxiliary Tomek, who turned out to have a working knowledge of plastic ties and a professional indifference to wandwork. The fifth man stopped on the bridge. The fifth man looked at Harry. The fifth man in his hand had a small box. Harry knew the box. It was the same dimensions, the same wood as the case from the Carcanos. "Granger," Harry said quietly. "Yes, that box is not a weapon. That box is an anchor." "Confirmed." He brought an anchor to a city fight. He brought an anchor to a city fight. Why? A pause. Because the box is what he wants on the cathedral floor when we get there. He is moving it with the wave. He cannot leave it. He cannot trust anyone else to carry it. The man on the bridge is, by his lights, the most senior carrier he had. "All right." Harry stood up. He stepped out from behind the cafe table. He walked at a measured pace the long length of the bridge toward the fifth man. The fifth man's wand came up. Harry did not raise his. "Sir," Harry said, "Sir, I want the box." The fifth man, who had been a junior Auror in Riga in 1979 and had crossed over to the Death Eaters in 1981, and who had been carrying instruments of his master's will for 14 years, looked at the 13-year-old boy walking toward him on the bridge. He had been told in the briefing what the boy was. He had not been told what the boy looked like. He raised his wand. He fired. He fired a curse the color of a slow-rotting plum, which was the color of the curse the senior cell members at Karkaroff's old fortress preferred for cargo escort, because the curse traveled along an arc that closed at the recipient's throat. Harry took the curse on a shield charm that he had been drilling with Bucky for 90 days. The curse splashed off the shield. The curse landed in the river, and the river, for 10 meters around the impact, hissed. Harry kept walking. "Sir," he said, "I am asking the box." The fifth man fired again. Harry took it again. The fifth man fired 3 times more in rapid sequence with 3 different curses. Harry took them all. Bucky on the rooftop, watching, did not in his face do anything visible. He had been the one to drill Harry on the shield charm sequencing. He had told Harry in the long evenings of the previous summer on the compound's training floor that the trick to a shield was not the strength of the shield but the order of the breath, and Harry had practiced the order until the order had become a thing he did the way he walked. He was walking the order now. He was 8 meters from the fifth man when the fifth man, with the box clutched against his chest with his left hand, dropped his wand. It was not a surrender, it was a decision. He had decided by the third curse that the boy in the jacket on the bridge was not going to be stopped by the curses he had in the bottom of his wand grip. He had decided somewhere around the 5th curse that he was going to lose this engagement. He had decided in the second after losing the engagement what he was going to do with the loss. He dropped his wand because his free hand needed to be on the box. He brought the free hand up over the wood. He whispered a word. The box began to open. "Granger, I see it. Can you cap it? From here, yes, cap it." Hermione, from behind the cafe table, raised her wand and threw a spell at the box that she had developed over 6 months in her notebook from 3 different sources, and that had not been tested under combat conditions. The spell traveled the length of the bridge in a thin, pale line. It hit the box. The box in the man's hand stopped opening. It did not close, but it stopped opening. The fifth man stared at the box. He stared at Harry. He did on his face the thing of a man who has been told all his life that there were children and there were soldiers and that these were not the same kind of thing, and who is on a bridge in a city in March watching that line erase. He turned to run. The bird in the sky moved one final lap. The bird in the sky was on this lap looking down. Harry felt it. He had been waiting for the wave. He had been waiting for the bird's eye to move. He looked up in time to see the underside of the bird's head, which was not a head. It was a shape that had been kept up by the master who had laid the operation, and the shape on this lap was tracking the bridge. "Cap, son, wave, I see it. Where? South embankment. Behind you, Bellatrix Lestrange in 4. She has been on the Pyaskawa for 9 minutes. She is moving on the bridge now. Cap, I'm halfway down the bridge. Son, hold the box. Take the fifth man. Granger and Weasley fall back to the city side. We will close on Lestrange from the rooftops. Sir, you hold the box, son, you hold the box. I'm coming." He did not have time to come. Bellatrix came onto the bridge at a soft, pale walk. She did not fire, she did not have to. She came at the speed of a person who had been told the prey was on the bridge and that the prey would, on the bridge, look back. Harry did not look back. He took the fifth man at the wrist. He took the box. He put the box with both hands into Hermione's hands, which had come up from behind the parapet. He said quietly, "Run." She ran. Ron, with the carbine across his back, came up at Harry's elbow. "You don't run," Harry said. "No," said Ron, "I don't." Bellatrix was 60 meters down the bridge. She stopped. She tilted her head. She did the small private smile that she had been doing in rooms in Eastern Europe for 10 years. "The captain's child," she said in soft, clear English. "Allow me to make your acquaintance." She raised her wand. Harry on the bridge did not move. He spoke into the comm. He did not speak loud. "Cap, son, permission to engage Lestrange." "Negative, son, Bucky has the line." "Cap, she is in front of me. I am the one she sees. I am the one she is going to kill in the next 10 seconds. Permission to engage Lestrange long enough for Bucky to close the line." A pause. "Permission granted, son. Hold for Bucky's mark." "Yes, sir." He raised his wand. He did not in his face do anything visible. He stepped out across the center line of the bridge. Bellatrix's smile widened. She fired. The curse was not the same color as the fifth man's. It was a thin green line that crossed the air with the precise rapidity of a thing that had been drilled. Harry stepped out of it. The curse hit the parapet behind him. The parapet where it had been ceased to be parapet. Ron, who had been to Harry's right, was not Ron's posture anymore. Ron had gone flat against the cobblestone with the carbine cheeked at his shoulder and his eye on the high windows along the south embankment, doing the second position cover that Bucky had taught him over the past 4 months on a range in upstate New York. He did not at first fire. He waited. Bellatrix fired again. Harry stepped under it. The cobblestones beside his right boot smoked. "Patronus," Harry murmured. He did not say it for the comm. He said it for himself. He raised his wand. He thought not of a happy memory, but of a kitchen in winter with a window and a tree and a bird, and of a man at a counter who had not been able to drink his coffee for a long time after he had said something. He thought of the small, careful tin cup of soup. He thought of Sam handing him a triangle of toast. He thought of Bucky and a wooden soldier. He thought of Natasha with the king on its side. He thought, last of all, of Hermione at the kitchen table at 9, drawing a third column. Expecto Patronum. A stag the color of cold light came out of the wand and went down the bridge at a hard, low gallop. Bellatrix had to break her line. She had not on her briefing been told that the boy could throw a corporeal Patronus at 13. She had been told he was, for his age, gifted. She had not been told he was, for any age, this. She broke her line. She sidestepped the stag. The sidestep put her for a small, careful second in profile. In profile, 800 meters across the city, in a window on a building Bucky had taken 3 minutes to climb to. Bucky took the shot. The shot was a single round. It was not loud. It was a Soviet-designed subsonic round that Bucky had been carrying for 10 years for a different woman, and had, on the morning of, decided was meant for this one. Bellatrix Lestrange on the bridge in the small, careful second of profile did not on her face do anything visible. The shot hit her at the inside line of the right collarbone. She went down at the speed at which physics required her to go down. She did not on the way down fire. She had been a woman who had in her life fired on more men than most armies had fired on, and she could not on this morning fire. She landed on the bridge. She did not get up. Ron, on the cobblestone, fired 3 rounds in rapid succession at 3 other points along the south embankment to cover Bucky's exfil. 2 of the rounds went into upper-story windows. The third went, by Ron's later admission to his mother and to no one else, into a brick 3 centimeters above the head of a Death Eater, whose name Ron did not yet know, but whose face Ron had memorized as the face of the man who had pointed his wand at Hermione's back 2 minutes earlier. The Death Eater behind the brick decided he did not want to be on the south embankment anymore. He left. The bridge, after a long count of 7, was quiet. Harry walked the length of it back to the city side. He did not walk fast. He did not walk slowly. He walked the speed of a man who has, this morning, decided a thing and would like very much to sit down, and would not, for another 40 minutes, allow himself to. Hermione, on the city side with the box in her lap and the wand tip on it to keep it stopped, looked at him. She did not say anything. He did not say anything. He sat down beside her on the curb. He put a hand once, briefly, against the back of the box. Then he closed his eyes a count of 2 and opened them again. In the comm, very quietly, Cap said, "Bring it home, son." Harry said, "Yes, sir." By noon, the city was quiet. By 2 in the afternoon, the Polish ministry had thanked S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers in a private cable and condemned them in a public statement, which was the order of events all parties had agreed on in advance. By 5, the order had thanked them in person. By 7, the box was at the compound in a vault, behind a door Tasha had personally walked the keying of. By 9 in the operations room, with the long horizontal map and the wooden tokens, Hermione laid the box's resonance readout across the map, alongside the Sevastopol corridor and the Carcanos corridor and the Trabzon line. She put her finger on the cathedral. Sir, Granger, he is missing his 7th anchor. Confirmed. Confirmed, the box is the replacement material. He had been moving it east. We have this morning taken it west. He cannot complete the working without it. He has, on the floor of the cathedral, 6 anchors and an architecture that will not hold without the 7th. How long does he have? He has until he finds a substitute. Substitute material is rare. The corridor for substitute material has, this afternoon, been closed by us. He cannot move new material into the cathedral by any route shield, or the order is not now watching. How long, Granger? 2 weeks, perhaps 3. Beyond that, the architecture begins to degrade. Beyond a month, the 7th anchor cannot be completed at all. Cap looked at the map. He looked at the boy across the room, who was at parade rest beside the door with his Gryffindor tie pulled crooked and a bandage on his left wrist and the field journal open in his hands. Son, sir, you will lead the spearhead. Harry did not, on his face, do anything visible. Yes, sir, you will go in at the breach. You will move at the head of the joint force. You will be flanked by Maddox, Weasley, Granger, and Bucky. Sam will be in the air. Tasha will be on the eastern wall. I will command the operation from the field. We will go in at 3 nights from now, 0300 local, on the assumption that he is reading our movements and will be at the cathedral preparing to do the only thing he can do, which is to wait for us and to be in the room when we come. Yes, sir. Do you want this? Yes, sir. Why? Harry looked at him a long moment. Because I command my line, sir, and the line is going to the cathedral and the line is mine. Cap looked at him. He nodded once slowly. All right, son, brief your team. He briefed his team. That night, very late, he wrote in his journal by candle in his dormitory at the compound, with Hedwig on the windowsill and Bucky in a chair in the doorway with a coffee in his hand and a face that, on Bucky, was the face of a man who was not going to sleep tonight either. Day 456. Rocklaw, sky owned, bridge held, box recovered, Bellatrix down, Bucky, 5 hostiles taken, no fatalities, friendly, 1 civilian casualty, tram derailment, Polish authorities. Cap has ordered the spearhead. I will lead. Cathedral in 3 nights. Carpathians. The seat. Sentence still holds. Anyone who walks with me walks home. I will say it on the breach. He closed the journal. Blew out the candle. Bucky in the doorway did not move from the chair until the boy was asleep, and even then did not move from the chair. And even when, in the hours before dawn, Steve came up the hallway and stood with him in the doorway, neither man spoke and neither man left until the sky outside the window above the bed began to be the color of certain mornings the both of them had walked through. A long time ago and on another continent, and in another war, and on the way to another bridge. There were 2 conversations on the second night that nobody outside the rooms ever heard, and both of them mattered. The first was in Sam's room on the compound's residential floor, where Harry came at 1:30 in the morning in pajamas and a pair of slippers Bucky had given him for Christmas, with a folded piece of paper in his hand. He knocked at Sam's door, which was open because Sam slept with his door open when there was work in 3 days. Sam looked up from the desk. He had been reading a flight manual. Hey, little man. Sam, sit. Harry sat down on the edge of the bed. I have a question. Ask it. On the bridge in the second wave, I made the call to ask Cap for permission to engage Lestrange. Yeah, he said yes, he did. Should he have? Sam set the manual down. He took his time about it. He was a man who took his time when the question deserved time. He looked at Harry. He said after a long moment, yes. Why? Because you had read the situation correctly. Because she was 60 meters from you and Bucky was 800, and she would have closed those 60 meters in about 3 seconds and Bucky needed 6. Because you were the only thing on that bridge that was going to slow her down long enough to give Bucky the line. And because you knew that, and you asked him to let you do the thing, and he heard you ask. He said yes because you'd already decided yes. He just said it after you. That's the answer I wanted you to give. Don't ever ask me for the answer you want, little man. Ask me for the right one. You agree on this one. I agree on this one. All right. Harry sat with his hands in his lap a moment. Then he unfolded the piece of paper and put it on the desk next to Sam's manual. What's this? A flight plan. Sam looked at it. The flight plan was hand-drawn in pencil, with 3 penciled vectors over the Carpathian Valley and a small circle at the cathedral and 3 notations along the eastern wall. It had been drawn by a 13-year-old, but it had been drawn by a 13-year-old who had been doing pre-flight checklists with Sam on a helipad in upstate New York for 6 years. That's my approach, Harry said to the cathedral. Yes, Sam, I want a broom in the air at 3 a.m. local, not Quidditch. A real broom, the orders, charmed for thermal cover. I want it parked on the eastern wall before the breach goes. I want it there because if the breach doesn't go, or if it goes and I have to evac, I want a way out for the team that doesn't depend on Cap getting back to the Quinjet. That's a contingency. Yes, that is a good contingency. Will you fly it? Sam looked at him. Yes, he said. The second conversation was at 5 in the morning in Cap's office, with Steve at his desk and Bucky in the chair across from him, and a coffee between them that neither of them was drinking. He's not going to fight us straight. No, Buck, he's going to put the room together so that the fight is happening in 3 different rooms at the same time. He's going to make us pick which one is the real fight. He's going to lie in the wrong room. I know, you have a read. I have a read. Tell me, he's in the apps. You're sure? I'm sure. Why? Because the apps is the only place where all 6 of his anchors are in line of sight of him at the same time. He cannot, in the last week before completion, be in a room where he can't see all 6. The architecture is fragile. He will be looking at it. He will not be willing to look away from it. He will not put himself in any room from which he cannot see all 6. Then we go to the apps. We do not go straight to the apps. All right, we send a force at the nave. He will, by the architecture of the building, see the nave attack as the primary attack. He will engage from the apps. He will hold the apps. He will not move. We send a second force at the western transept. He will see that as a feint and will continue to hold the apps. We send the third force, the small force, the team, at the eastern transept. We come in through a window that is, in the architectural survey, blocked. We blow the window. We come in behind the line of his eye. We are not stopping his line. We are getting behind it. And then Harry takes the apps. Bucky looked at him a long moment. Stevie, yeah, you're going to let a 14-year-old take a wizard who has been a wizard for 60 years. He'll be 14 in 3 months. You're going to let a 13-year-old. He'll have you, he'll have Granger, he'll have Maddox, he'll have Weasley, he'll have me in the breach. He won't be alone in the apps. He'll be the one in the front, he won't be the one alone. And you trust him. Steve looked at his oldest friend. I trust him, Buck. He has been preparing for this since he was 7. He has not been preparing because we made him. He has been preparing because he decided to. He is the man I would send in if I had to send a man, and the only thing in me that doesn't want to send him is the part of me that doesn't want to send him because he's the kid I read to at bedtime. That part of me is real, Buck. It is also wrong. He is going. Bucky did not say anything for a long moment. He looked at the coffee. All right, he said. All right. I'm going to be on his shoulder, Stevie. I know. From the breach to the apps, I know. And if it goes bad, it won't go bad, Buck, Stevie. It won't go bad, Stevie, if it goes bad. Steve looked at him. Then you and I will go bad with him, Buck, the way we've always gone bad together. Bucky nodded. He picked up the coffee. He drank it. He set it down. All right, Stevie, all right. Outside the office window, the sky over the compound was the color of certain mornings, and Steve Rogers, who had not in his life run out of mornings, watched it become full light and prepared to brief. Chapter 6, Carpathian Cathedral. The valley above Sayashtul was cold the way only Carpathian valleys are cold in late March, which is the cold of a country that has not yet decided to be spring and is, by long habit, willing to wait. The pines along the eastern wall ran black against the gray. A frost lay along the cobbled track that came up out of the village. The track climbed in long, slow switchbacks to the cathedral. The cathedral was, by all above-ground evidence, a private residence. It had been built 140 years before by a Hungarian count who had owned a copper concession and a number of opinions about architecture, and who had, in his retirement, commissioned a country house that was, in plan, almost exactly the floor plan of a small basilica. He had liked the proportion. He had not, on his death, lived in the place much. The house had passed to a Romanian merchant family, then to a Karkaroff, then to silence. From the road below, on a clear morning, it looked like nothing more than an old country manor with 3 stone chimneys. From the air on the thermal imaging Sam Wilson had been pulling for the last 72 hours, it looked like a small contained sun. The breach went at 02:56 local, 4 minutes ahead of plan, because Cap had decided, on the walk down from the op to the line, that the 4 minutes were the difference between holding the eastern transept and not. He did not announce the change. He simply nodded to the lieutenant of the Shield ground crew, and the lieutenant keyed a small switch, and the explosives that had been placed by Maddox 3 hours earlier at the eastern transept's lower window went off with the soft, restrained cough of charges that had been laid by a man who did not want to wake the village. The eastern wall did not, in the breach, collapse. It opened. It opened the way a door opens. Through the opening in the order they had drilled came Harry Potter and James Maddox, then Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, then Bucky Barnes, who came last and who was already, by the time his metal hand had touched the inner sill, looking up the long axis of the apse. The cathedral inside was not a cathedral. It was, in the literal architecture, a basilica. There was a nave, there were aisles, there was an apse. The apse, where in a real cathedral there would have been an altar, contained 6 wooden plinths in a half-moon arrangement, and at each plinth there was an object on a velvet pad, a ring, a locket, a cup, a diadem, a heavy black-bound book, and a small silver knife. The objects in the dim were each lit by a single thin floating candle that did not flicker. In the center of the half-moon, on a low chair that was not a chair so much as an absence of a chair, sat the man. He was not a man. The architecture of his body had been refused by him for a long time, and what sat in the chair was, in his preferred sense of the term, an instrument, pale, lean, hairless, eyes that had been red since 1979. He wore black, he held a wand. He did not look up when the eastern wall opened. He had been waiting. He was looking at the door of the nave. He had been told by the small spellwork he had laid into the foundations of the building that an attack on the nave was imminent. The information was accurate because a joint shield order task force of 40 men under the immediate command of Captain Rogers was, at this minute, advancing up the cobbled track from the village and was, by his measurement, 2 minutes from the nave doors. He was not aware of the eastern transept. He had assumed by the architectural survey that the eastern transept was blocked. It had been blocked. The blocking had been removed very carefully over the course of the last 48 hours by a shield ranger named Maddox, who had spent the 3rd year of his career on hostile foreign asset demolitions and who had not, in the last 48 hours, been seen by the man in the chair, because the man in the chair could not see anyone who was not looking at him. Maddox had not, at any moment in those 48 hours, looked at him. Now, on the inside of the wall, with the eastern transept open behind them, the team came up under the shadow of the columns along the eastern aisle. Bucky was first to the corner. He held up 2 fingers. Harry, behind him, came up flat against the column. Bucky leaned out. He came back. 6 anchors. Apps half-moon him in the center. He is not looking at us. He is looking at the nave. Cap, sun, in position, eastern transept. Apps visible. He is fixed on the nave. Confirmed. Nave forces at the door. Cue your action. Harry, behind the column, looked at his team. He looked at Maddox. You take the eastmost anchor. Lock it. On my mark. Maddox nodded. Weasley. Yeah. You take the second. The cup. Same mark. Yes. Granger. Yes. Diadem. Third. Yes. Bucky. On you. You cover. Anything that moves to stop us, you stop it. On me. I will take the book. He will see me. I will need 90 seconds. You have me. And Cap will hear me. Bucky's mouth did the small, careful smile. Cap will hear you, then on 3. He counted 3 under his breath. He moved. He moved out from behind the column at a steady walk, in the way Cap had taught him to walk into a room he was about to take, and he came up the eastern aisle of the not-quite cathedral with his wand at his hip and the field journal still in his coat pocket, and the small folding knife Cap had given him in diagon at the inside lining where his hand could reach it without thinking. The man in the chair in the center of the half-moon lifted his head. He had not in 11 years been surprised. He was, this morning, surprised. He did not let it move his face. Harry Potter, sir, you came. Yes, you came through the wall. We did. And you brought a small black-haired boy and a metal-armed man and 2 children and a shield ranger named Maddox to my apps. Yes, why? To take your house, sir. The thin pale mouth in the center of the half-moon did the smallest possible thing that was not exactly a smile. It is an interesting choice of words. The captain has trained you well. He has, sir. He has also trained you to be polite. Yes, sir. Curious. I have not in my life been called sir by a child who was intending to kill me. I do not intend to kill you, sir. The smile this time almost finished. What do you intend? To take what you came for, sir, to take it from this room, to leave you here without it. The Lord Voldemort, who had been holding his wand loose at his side, lifted it. He did not at first attack. He had not in his life attacked under uncertainty. He had attacked under certainty for 53 years. He was, this minute, in the smallest possible degree uncertain. He spoke. He spoke in the soft, sibilant English he had learned in a Yorkshire orphanage, and had never, in spite of every elocution, fully bleached of the orphanage, and he said, in that English, "The captain is not in this room. He is in the nave, sir. He is bait. He is the front of the line, sir. He has sent a child to do his work. He has sent a unit, sir, and I am the front of that unit, and he is the front of his. You will die in this room, Harry Potter. Sir, I do not think so. You speak with great confidence. I have been raised by confident men, sir." The wand in the center of the apse came up. The wand in Harry's hand came up. The 2 wands at their respective angles did not yet move. Voldemort in the chair watched the boy. He had read the briefings. He had read Dolohov's letters. He had read every intercept he had been able to read in the 4 years his cell had been monitoring the compound from a distance. He had told himself over those 4 years that what he was reading was an inflated American intelligence summary of a normal wizarding child raised in a non-wizarding household. He had told himself this because the alternative did not, in his architecture of the world, fit. He looked at the boy. The boy was the alternative. The boy was thin and small for his age and had his mother's eyes. This had been in the file. This was correct. The boy had a scar that ran a clean diagonal line from the right eyebrow up. This had been in the file. This was correct. The boy was in his stance, in his shoulder line, in the easy waiting hold of the wand at his hip, in the angle of his head, not a wizarding child. He was a soldier. He was in the small, the kind of soldier Voldemort had only ever seen come out of one mold. "You are," he said softly, "his." "Yes, he has in the small made you his." "Yes, sir, I had not believed it." "I am sorry, sir." "You are not sorry." "You are right, sir, I am not sorry." The first curse came then. It came without announcement. It came at full strength, of a kind that should not, by any reasonable measure, have been thrown at a 13-year-old in a basilica. Harry stepped under it. Curse went over his right shoulder and hit a column behind him, and the column where it had been ceased to be column. Maddox moved. Maddox did not, on the move, attack Voldemort. He had been instructed not to. He had been instructed on his life not to. He went instead to the easternmost plinth, and he took the locket, and he put it in a small lead-lined case Hermione had handed him on the breach, and he closed the case. Weasley moved. Weasley went to the second plinth. He took the cup. Hermione moved. She went to the third. She took the diadem. She also, with the small, precise sweep of a hand she had drilled 300 times in her dormitory over the past month, drew her wand along the floor of the apse and laid a containment perimeter from the eastern column to the western column. The perimeter glowed thinly, then went invisible. Voldemort had time, in the half-second of the second curse, to register that the eastern locket had left its plinth. He did not, in his face, do anything visible. He fired again. Harry took the second curse on a shield charm. The shield held. The shield held because the shield had been laid by a boy who had been drilling the Order of the Breath every morning for 9 months with a man in a doorway in Brooklyn by way of Bucharest. Bucky on the column did not fire. He did not need to. Voldemort in the center did not have a line on the team yet. Bucky was waiting. Voldemort fired 3 more curses in rapid succession. Harry took 2. The third one at his ankle he did not take. He dropped under it. The curse hit the back wall of the apse. The back wall hissed. He came up. He kept walking. He was 4 meters from the man in the chair. "You will not reach me, Harry Potter." "I am here to reach you, sir." He kept walking. Voldemort fired the killing curse. Harry stepped out of it. The curse went past his right ear and hit the door behind him, and the door where it had been ceased to be a door. He kept walking. He was at the half-moon. He stepped over the line where the half-moon had been laid. He went to the 4th plinth. He took the book in both hands. He turned. He looked at the man in the chair. He said very quietly, "You are a hostile force in a building I have come to take, sir. I have, in the last 60 seconds, taken 4 of the 6 things in this room that matter to you. The remaining 2 will be taken by my team in the next 30. The architecture of your working will break in the next 2 minutes. You will not in the next 24 hours be able to repair it. You have a choice. You can take this engagement to the end and we will end it, or you can leave this room. There is a window in the eastern wall. It is open. You will not pass me. You will pass through the wall. You will go, and we will allow you to go, and the next conversation will be at our time and our place. Choose, sir." Voldemort in the chair looked at him a long, quiet moment. He had not been spoken to in that tone of voice by anyone since 1944. He had not been offered a retreat by anyone in his life. He did, in the smallest possible movement of his shoulders, the thing of a man who is calculating. Then he raised his wand. He raised it at Harry. He fired the killing curse. Harry, who had been waiting for it because Cap had said in the op that the man would fire it, stepped under the curse. The curse went over his left shoulder. He did not, on his face, do anything visible. He raised his own wand. He spoke. "Anyone who walks with me walks home." He fired. He did not fire a killing curse. He had not learned the killing curse and would not learn the killing curse. He fired the sequencing he had drilled with Bucky, and with the wand tutor the Order had sent at Cap's request for the last 14 weeks. A disarming charm of a precise width Hermione had calculated, layered over a patronus that did not have to be visible, layered under a severing charm that took an angle no instructor would have approved of. The disarming charm took the wand out of Voldemort's hand. The severing charm did not, in any meaningful way, harm the man in the chair. It did, however, sever the small, thin line of magic running between the chair and the half-moon of plinths. The architecture of the room collapsed. It did not collapse the way a building collapses. It collapsed the way a tent collapses when the central pole is taken out. The candles above the plinths went out. The light in the apse went pale. The thin, warm wind that had been in the cathedral since they came through the wall went away. Voldemort on the chair stood. He stood without the wand. He stood without the architecture. He looked at Harry. He did not, on his face, do anything visible. He spoke very softly in the orphanage English. "You have, in the small, made a great mistake. Sir, you are leaving the building. I will return Harry Potter. Yes, sir, we will be ready. You will not be ready for what I will return as. Sir, with respect, we have been ready since I was 7. The man in the chair, who had not been a man in a long time, turned. He went, with the slow, careful walk of a person who has been refused something he had been certain of, toward the eastern wall. He passed through it. He passed through it because Hermione's perimeter let him pass, because Cap in the op had ordered Hermione to lay a perimeter that would let him pass, because Cap had said on the morning of that if the man was going to live through the room, the man was going to live through the room walking out of it, and not flying out of it on the back of a curse, and not apparating out of it past a shield net, and not being killed by anybody on the team and made in his death into the kind of thing that a man like him became when killed without preparation. He passed through the wall. He was gone. The cathedral was on the floor of the apse. 4 people: Harry, Maddox, Weasley, Granger. On the column, Bucky; on the air, Sam; in the op, Tasha; coming up the nave at the head of 40 shield operatives and order wizards, Cap. Cap reached the apse 41 seconds later. He came through the nave doors with the shield on his arm and the line behind him, and the line, when they saw the apse, went very still. Cap walked the length of the nave. He stopped at the line of the half-moon. He looked at the boy. He looked at the case in Maddox's hand. He looked at the cup in Weasley's. He looked at the diadem in Hermione's. He looked at the book in Harry's. He looked at the ring on the 5th plinth and the knife on the 6th, both still there, because the boy had told the man with the wand that the remaining 2 would be taken in 30 seconds and had not on his own taken them because the team was the team. He stepped across the half-moon. He took the ring. He took the knife. He put them in a second lead-lined case. He closed the case. He looked at Harry. "Son, sir, you commanded." "Yes, sir." "You took the room." "Yes, sir." "You let him go." "You ordered me to, sir." "I ordered you to because you would have anyway." Harry did not answer. He looked at Cap. He waited. Cap stepped forward. He put a hand once very gently against the side of the boy's head in the way he had been putting it since the morning at the border. He held it there a count of 3. He turned to Maddox. "Ranger, sir. Are you injured?" "No, sir." "Weasley?" "No, sir." "Granger?" "No, sir." "Barnes?" "Number, then we are going home." He turned. He looked back at the boy. He nodded once. He led the line back down the nave. In the corridor outside the cathedral, in the gray pre-dawn, on the cobbled track that came up out of the village, James Maddox was the first man to fall. He had been at the rear of the column. He fell from a curse that came out of the tree line at 500 yards, fired by a Death Eater who had not, at the start of the morning, been on any briefings list, and who on the morning of had been hiding in a small hollow under a pine tree for 9 hours waiting for a shot. The curse hit him at the base of the spine. He went down. Hermione, behind him, dropped to her knees. She put her hands on him. He looked at her. "Granger, Maddox, it is all right. It is not all right. It is the job, Maddox." He looked at Harry. Harry was already on a knee at his other side. He had the field journal in his pocket. He had Cap's hand on his shoulder. "Sir, Maddox, I read the chapter." "You did, Ranger. The bird went down at the end like I thought." "Yes, Ranger. Tell the kid not to read the next one without me. He is too young for it." "Yes, Ranger." Maddox looked at Harry. "Boss, Maddox, you did all right. Maddox, tell my mother I read the chapter." "I will." Maddox closed his eyes. He did not open them. Bucky at the tree line did not fire. He had already moved. He had moved at the first curse. He was, by the time Maddox closed his eyes, 3 pines deep, and the Death Eater who had fired the shot was no longer breathing, and Bucky was on his way back at a long, quiet walk, with the man's wand in his pocket and a face that did not move. The column came down the track. They came down at the speed of a column with a body. Hermione walked at Maddox's left, and Ron walked at his right, and Harry walked at his head, and Cap walked at his feet. And at the foot of the track, where the Quinjet sat with its ramp open and its engines low, they put him on the bench at the rear of the hold, and they sat with him the way a unit sits with one of its own, and they did not, for the flight back across Europe, look at anyone else. The cathedral behind them did not burn. The cathedral behind them sat in the pre-dawn light as a stone country house with 3 chimneys. The villagers in Sayishtal in the morning would not at first know that anything had happened. The architecture of the working had collapsed in such a way that the stone did not, on the surface, register a difference. It was the people inside the stone who had registered the difference. The man in the eastern wall had registered the difference. The boy with the journal had registered it. The captain at the foot of the bench had registered it. In the back of the Quinjet, halfway across the Atlantic, with Maddox under a shield blanket and Hermione asleep against Ron's shoulder and Bucky in the pilot's seat with Sam at his elbow doing the long, slow turn that would put them over the compound in another 2 hours, Steve Rogers sat next to the boy on the side bench and did not for a long time speak. The boy was awake. The boy did not at first speak either. Then he said very quietly, "Sir." "Son." "Maddox." "Yes, son." "He was at the rear because I put him at the rear." "You put him at the rear because he was the best demolitions operator we have, and because we needed him alive in the breach, and because you read the operation correctly." He was at the rear because you put him there and because he agreed and because the agreement was the right one. He died because a man in a tree took a shot we did not see. The shot was not a failure of your command. The shot was a war. He was a friend. He was a friend. I am sorry, sir. I am sorry too, son. We will be sorry together. We will be sorry for the rest of our lives. We will not ever be sorry that we sent him in. He went in. He was a man. He chose. He read the chapter. Harry, beside him, did not cry. He did not cry because crying had not been the thing he did. He sat with his hands in his lap and his eyes on a small fixed point at the bulkhead, and Cap, beside him, did not move him, and did not lift the moment, and did not, for a long time, say anything else. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his coat, and he took out a small enameled metal pin in the shape of a shield insignia, a stylized eagle on a roundel, dark blue and silver, with the words Recon Lead stamped in tiny lettering along the inner rim. He put the pin in Harry's hand. Son, sir, you'll be a captain someday. I am not asking to be a captain, sir. I know, son, you are not asking, you are commanding. There is in our line of work only the one. The asking is for boys, the commanding is for captains. You commanded a unit through a cathedral this morning. You let a man walk when killing him would have hurt the world. You brought your team out. You lost one. You will lose more before this is over, and you will not stop being the one who decides which one. You'll be a captain someday, son. Today you already are. Harry looked at the pin. He did not, on his face, do anything visible. Then he closed his hand around it. He nodded once. He put the pin in the small green folder Hermione had labeled in pencil 2 weeks before, Operation CARPATHAN, and he set the folder on the seat beside him, and he leaned, with the careful permission of a boy who has been carrying a thing for a long time, against the man at his shoulder. The man at his shoulder put an arm around him. He held it there. Dumbledore came to the compound the following afternoon. He had on the same sober gray-blue robes he had worn at the Polish border in 1991, and he had in his hand a small bouquet of late winter aconite from the gardens at Hogwarts, which he gave, with the small private courtesy of an older man, to Hermione Granger, who had been at the desk in the foyer when he came in, and who took the flowers with both hands and said, "Thank you, sir," in a careful, clean voice, and then turned and went to find Harry. Harry met him at the door of the operations room. He had on a clean shirt. He had on a clean coat. He had the shield insignia pinned to the inside lapel of the coat, where only he and Cap and one other man would know it was there. The other man was Dumbledore. Dumbledore stepped into the operations room. He looked at the long horizontal map. He looked at the wooden tokens. He looked at the small green folder labeled Operation CARPATHAN. He looked at the boy. He nodded once very slightly. He did not this time look down at the boy in the way a grandfather looks down at a child. He inclined his head. "Mr. Potter, headmaster. I have this morning written a letter to the International Confederation of Wizards. In the letter I have set out, to the best of my ability, the events of the last 48 hours. I have, in the letter, named a number of people. I have specifically named a 13-year-old who, by my report, conducted a joint operation across 2 continents that achieved an outcome the Confederation has not, in our history, achieved. I have informed the Confederation that for the duration of the present conflict, the operational command of joint order Avengers movements in Eastern Europe is to be conducted at the discretion of a unified command, of which the senior officer is Captain Steve Rogers and the field officer is Mr. Harry Potter. Harry, at the door, looked at him a long moment. Then he said, in the careful courtesy he had been giving since the morning at the border, "Thank you, sir. Mr. Potter, sir. Forgive me, I was for many years of the opinion that the proper teacher of the proper magic was the proper school. I was for many years in error. There are forms of education for which the school is, at most, a corner of the curriculum. The greater curriculum in your case has been delivered by a man in a star-spangled costume, who is, by my read, the best teacher of the principles of command I have in my long life met. I am not, in saying so, dismissing the school. I am, in saying so, dismissing my own pride. Sir, I should, in past tense, have walked away from the Polish border in 1991. I should not after have asked to take you back. I should have known on the morning that the man who had picked you up off the ground was the right man, and that my own conviction to the contrary was the conviction of an elder who has not, in his old age, stopped wanting to be the architect of every line. I have spent 4 years writing letters of correction to the captain. He has every time replied with great courtesy. He has never in the replies pointed out to me that I was wrong. The pointing out was, in his manner, never required. I am this afternoon pointing it out myself. Harry looked at him a long moment. He nodded. "All right, sir. That is a captain's word. It is. Carry it well, Mr. Potter." "I will, sir." Dumbledore inclined his head. He did not this time leave. He walked with the slow, careful walk of an older man who had decided, on the long flight from London, to do a thing he had not done in his life, to where Cap stood at the table, in the same dark coat he had worn at the border, with the shield knot on his arm and the field journal in his pocket and a coffee in his hand he was not drinking. Dumbledore stopped at the table. He did at the table the smallest possible thing that was not exactly a smile. He set his right hand, with great formal care, against his left shoulder, in the small clean shape of the salute he had not, in his life, given to a muggle. He held it there. Steve Rogers, who had not in his life asked an older man to salute him, returned the salute precisely, with the small clean shape of the gesture he had been given as a young man in another army, in another war. Neither man spoke. Bucky at the wall, with his arms crossed and his metal hand in his coat pocket, and a face that was, on Bucky, the face of a man who had been at war 50 years, and who had this afternoon been given permission by an old wizard in a sober gray-blue robe to be at peace with the part of the war that he was now allowed to call almost finished, watched. Sam, at the door, with both hands in his pockets, watched. Natasha, at the screen, with her eyes on the readout that showed, on the right side of the map, the cathedral's resonant signature down to a fraction of what it had been 48 hours before, did not turn. Harry, in the door of the operations room, with the shield insignia inside his coat and his hand on the doorframe and his sentence still in his throat, watched. The room held the moment. The moment did not, in the small end. It became instead the floor of the next thing, and the next thing, in the way these things do, was the work. The work was that the war was not finished. The work was that the man who had been at the chair in the apse had left through the eastern wall, and would, in his time, in his slow, patient, malign architecture, come back. The work was that the boy at the door, who had been 7 on a Polish border and was now 14 in a Hudson Valley operations room, was, between this afternoon and the morning he met that man again, going to be ready. The work was that he would not be ready alone. Cap put a hand once, very gently, against the back of the boy's head. He did not, this time, say anything. He did not have to. The boy in the doorframe, with the pin in the inside lapel of his coat and the journal in his pocket and the small, careful courtesy he had brought into this room and into every room since he was 7, looked up at the man at his shoulder, and the man at his shoulder looked down at him. And between them, in the quiet of an operations room on a hillside in the Hudson Valley in the late afternoon, the work began. Outside the long window, the sky was the color of certain afternoons. The bird was on the tree. The tree was on the hillside. The hillside was on a continent that, if you watched it from high enough up, looked like a thing under one careful arm. That night, very late, after the operations room had emptied and the headmaster had gone, Harry sat at the kitchen window with the field journal open on his lap. Cap was at the counter making toast. Bucky was at the door. Sam was at the sink rinsing 2 cups. Natasha was on the bench by the window with her hand resting in the small, careful way she had begun in the last year on the back of the boy's neck. He wrote in his careful, precise handwriting by candle, day 553, Cathedral. Took the room, lost Maddox, will write his mother in the morning. The captain has given me a pin. Have not earned it the way he means it, will earn it. War is not finished. Sentence holds. Anyone who walks with me walks home, and Maddox walked, and Maddox is home now, the way men like him are home. The next morning is on me. He closed the journal. He blew out the candle. The bird on the tree outside the window was, for the night, asleep.